Chapter 76. The upcoming holiday is Christmas, not April Fool's Day, Mr. Riddle. Snape's voice was calm, but even a fool could hear the sarcasm in it. Professor, I can still read the calendar. Why don't you take back what you just said? Tom tilted his head slightly. Why take it back, Professor? Don't you think that your relationship with me has reached the point of joking? Snape's face darkened. Can you please shut your mouth since you can't speak? Tom seemed not to notice his expression and sighed, Professor, I just realized that the path of learning magic is so lonely. Without a clear standard, I have no idea where I am going. The students in our academy, well, there is still a lot of room for improvement, but there is no way to measure my ability anymore. You are quite good at using fancy words. Snape's face twitched when he heard Wayne's euphemism. He took a breath and said, So you're targeting me? Yes. Tom said as a matter of course, you are my dean. Isn't it your responsibility to help students improve? You can just smile secretly because you have such an excellent student like me. It's just a fight. It won't take much time. Tom just wanted to do a test. Snape's strength should be considered a watershed in the wizarding world. There are not many people stronger than him in the entire wizarding world, excluding Dumbledore and Voldemort. Even Moody, who is known as the strongest orator, may be stronger than him, but he is only a wizard of the same level after all. However, Moody has more combat experience and his magic power may be stronger as well, so the gap is not that big. Some elite Death Eaters can also reach this level. And below them are the normal elite orators, such as Kingsley Shacklebolt. If he duels with Snape, Kingsley Shacklebolt will definitely lose. Going further down, there is a group of Vegetable Bee anyone can win or lose. Tom thinks Lupin and Sirius are more representative. They look powerful, but in fact, they are just so-so. Especially Sirius, who is just fierce and willing to fight to the death, but is essentially a paper tiger. Therefore, Snape was a good measuring stick for him. As long as he got Snape's approval, he could be a little more unrestrained in doing things during this holiday. If he surpasses Snape, then he can just say I don't eat beef to most wizards. After all, Tom's holiday plan included some dangerous things he wanted to do, and he couldn't just rely on those 10 minutes of physical exercise every day. Snape gave Tom a long look. He was also a little moved. He was able to beat 7th graders just 1 month into his studies. Now that a semester has passed, how much has Riddle grown? Did it meet his expectations? Of course, these are not really important. The important thing is, I can teach this kid a lesson openly. Damn it, if he lets go of such a good opportunity, is he still human? I promised, today. Stop. What are you doing? Before Snape could finish his words, a stern rebuke came from the stairs. It was Professor McGonagall who arrived. Seeing several people fighting, she became so angry that her face turned red and she kept shouting at them to stop fighting. When I came over to take a look, I felt even more dizzy and almost fainted. It wasn't because 2 of her students were among the fighting students, but because of Snape. There was such a lively fight going on up there, and as the dean of the college, you didn't stop it, but actually stood a few steps away and started chatting with the students? Snape's face rarely turned red. He was so busy chatting with Tom, trying to make sure whether this kid really wanted to be beaten, that he forgot about Malfoy. Tom also looked over. Malfoy was not in a very good condition at this moment. There was a big tear in his school uniform robe and several scratches on his face. His platinum blonde hair, which was combed inwards without a single strand, was also in a mess. But he looked much better than Harry and Ronald. Advertisement there was no other way, 3 against 2, and Goyle and Crabbe were heavy enough to take on both Harry and Ronald. The 2 were smart, and they fought Malfoy alone, barely turning the situation around. Minerva, you're just in time. Snape returned to normal and said solemnly, I was just about to deal with you when you showed up. I just saw that it was Weasley who wanted to fight Malfoy first. Crabbe and Goyle were just helping his friends. Malfoy was the first to say something bad. Harry's glasses were broken, but luckily he could use the repair spell now, so he quickly fixed them and began to defend his friend, Professor McGonagall. Malfoy mocked Ronald's family, saying, Hagrid's cottage was a palace. Ronald's face turned red with anger and he stared at Malfoy. Professor McGonagall looked over sternly, Mr. Malfoy, is what Potter said true? Facing Professor McGonagall, even if Snape was here he wouldn't dare to lie, he could only turn his head away and respond with silence. Good, very good. Professor McGonagall took a deep breath and said, "You are still causing trouble for me when the holidays are approaching. Each of you will be deducted 20 points. In addition to the homework during the holidays, you must write a 5,000 word self-review and hand it in to me after school starts. Then, you will be put in detention for another half a month." In terms of morality, intelligence, physical fitness, aesthetics, and labor, Professor McGonagall was in decline and punished them all. Without even asking for Snape's opinion, he announced the punishment and sent them to the school hospital for treatment. If anyone dared to talk to him again, all the punishments would be doubled. Harry and the others could only attack each other with their eyes and went upstairs with their mouths tightly shut. Snape was furious. It was all Riddle's fault. If he hadn't stopped me, things wouldn't have gotten so bad. Gryffindor was already in a bad state, and now they're in last place due to points deducted from their defensive rebounding. But Slytherin was not like that. The key point was that they still deducted points from 3 people. What a huge loss! Who would have thought that Professor McGonagall with thick eyebrows and big eyes would become so sinister, using the already rotten Gryffindor to drag Slytherin, who had great hopes of winning the championship, into the water. Snape glared at Tom fiercely and whispered, "Come to the Quidditch field at 12 o'clock tonight. I don't have much here, but I have a lot of healing potions. You know the consequences of not coming." With that, Snape strode away, the wind blowing his robes up, and he turned into his old bat form again. The last dinner before the holiday was particularly sumptuous. The walls of the auditorium were already covered with holly and mistletoe as decorations. 12 towering Christmas trees were topped with huge, transparent crystal balls, adding to the festive atmosphere. The students were chatting animatedly, sharing their holiday plans with their friends, and the professors in the guest seats were all smiles. But Tom found that Quirrell was not here, and he wanted to remind Quirrell to remember to give him a Christmas present on Christmas. "Unfortunately, I was still a step too late." Judging from the situation, Quirrell might have left school early. After the dinner, the lounge was still lively. Tom simply found an opportunity to sneak out early and went to the room of requirement to stretch his body. At 11:30, he arrived at the Quidditch field. At 12 o'clock, Snape showed up on time. She was still dressed in the same black robe, but she looked completely different in Tom's eyes. At this moment, Snape exuded a sharp aura, his robes fluttered due to the vibration of magic, and a slender wand was already held in his hand, hanging diagonally and pointing to the ground. Tom could feel it. He really wanted to beat himself up. Judging from the momentum, I wonder if he is preparing to duel with Ableta. Thinking of Dumbledore, Tom looked up at the highest spire of the castle, which had the best view of the entire castle. Even though the Quidditch pitch was surrounded by high walls, it could not block the prying eyes. Tom jokingly said, "Professor, do you think, will Professor Dumbledore be the only spectator of this duel?" "Don't think too much." Snape stretched out his voice, "He has left the castle. No one will come to disturb us, and no one will come to rescue you." Snape raised his wand and made duel etiquette, "Stop wasting time, start early and finish early. I don't want to sit here with you in the cold wind, Riddle. As a professor, I will let you make the first move. The professor is generous." Tom also raised his wand and bowed slightly. At the same time, a thundercloud appeared above Snape's head and smashed down on his head. Although it was very sudden, Snape was a veteran, and his body's reaction speed was almost immediately before his brain issued a command, quickly erected a magic barrier to block the lightning. He wanted to scold Tom for not following martial ethics, but do you think Tom has fulfilled the etiquette of dueling? Done. It's just that he cast a spell while completing it. Should I say he is worthy of being a Slytherin student? Even this vague rule has to be taken into account. After resisting the first wave of attacks, Snape stirred the wind and clouds, and the weather spell floating above his head broke, turning into black flames, whistling towards Tom. Advertisement: "Little tricks don't work on me." Even at this time, he still did not forget to taunt. "No one can do anything today. Tom Riddle, the Half-Blood Prince, will definitely be beaten. Come on, Professor, it's just a greeting." White light emerged on Tom's surface, turning him into a big light bulb, radiating light in all directions, and the black smoke melted like ice and snow when it touched him. Patronus charm. Snape frowned, somewhat unsure of his own judgment. Can this thing also block my own dark magic? Regardless of Snape's ignorance, this was Andros's absolute advantage. In the modern magic world, it is generally believed that Patronus is a countermeasure magic used to deal with Dementors and Voldemorts. The reason why it is famous is, firstly, because of the notoriety of Dementors, and secondly, because it is too difficult to learn. If you can master this spell before graduation, you will definitely get extra points in the exam. But the appearance of Dementors in Azkaban prison happened in the 15th century, only a few hundred years ago. But the Patronus spell has been passed down for thousands of years, and Andro has gained great fame from it. How could it have only this single function? The truth is, in ancient times, there were not as many defensive magics and antidotes against black magic as there are now, so the Patronus charm became a universal antidote, a powerful positive energy that could resist the erosion of darkness. However, due to the development of magic and the high threshold, this method was gradually lost. After all, it is difficult to master the Patronus, let alone advanced applications. Go. Most of the black smoke was dissipated, and the remaining half deformed and solidified into densely packed daggers. Snape pulled his wand, and the soil on the ground turned into a thick set of armor, and the daggers hit the armor with a clanging sound. Tom spun around at high speed, and flames surrounded the field. 2 fire snakes rushed out from behind Snape and attacked him, but they were blown into black smoke. Snape's robe swung, and he seemed to have turned into a giant bat jumping on the ground. He was incredibly agile and jumped out of the circle of fire after several consecutive jumps. "Professor, this magic can you teach me?" Tom asked. "If you defeat me, I can consider it." Snape's expression remained calm, but he was extremely happy in his heart. This speed of progress, Tom gave him so many surprises. It is difficult to transform magical products, but Tom can not only transform them, but also use magic. He had only seen this method in Dumbledore and Professor McGonagall. He himself might succeed, but there was also a chance of failure. He would never dare to try it lightly in the actual combat. "Who taught you transfiguration?" Snape couldn't help asking. He suspected that Dumbledore was giving Tom some special treatment. "A teacher," Tom said honestly. "Isn't Andrus a teacher? He can even change the form of a Patronus. You can imagine his attainments in transfiguration." It can be said that Tom's strongest skill now is transfiguration, and the others are somewhat inferior. "Forget it." Snape's face darkened. "Let me see how many tricks you have up your sleeve." After saying that, he flicked his wand and 2 invisible sharp blades formed. Tom raised his eyebrows and without hesitation, he conjured a water wall and pushed it forward. Suddenly, 2 cracks appeared on the water wall. "Cut off the flow." Tom instantly strengthened the defenses at these 2 locations, and after a clang, the spell collapsed. "Professor, I want to learn this trick too." Okay, I'll give it to you. I'll give it all to you." Snape was sure that Tom was really qualified to compete with him. His blood, which had long since cooled, began to boil, and his aura rose again. Tom couldn't find a suitable opponent, and so could he? Fighting Dumbledore? That's asking for trouble. It would not be appropriate to rashly challenge other professors. As for the Death Eaters, the militant ones have been locked up, and those who are still outside are just a bunch of scum. Unexpectedly, a first-year student would become his best opponent. Snape no longer held back. Under his control, a goal post flew up and turned into a thick and large arrow. He also attached flames to the arrow and shot. No, it hit Tom. Tom's face also changed, and he cursed, "Old bat, do you still have any shame?" Chapter 77. Snape was serious. A huge amount of magic power was released, and Tom realized that he had underestimated Snape. The power displayed here is totally inconsistent with the descriptions in the original work. How did Nagini bite him to death? The thought of complaining flashed through Tom's mind. Now was not the time to think about these messy things, but he had to take this move first. Snape's magic was still boiling, and he had more attacks in mind than just this one. The lawn began to surge, and countless tiny weeds turned into hissing little snakes, squeezing Tom's movement space and interfering with his spell casting. Tom released a concussion blast at his feet, temporarily repelling the venomous snakes, and then tried to transform the giant flaming arrow, but he failed. Snape was always paying attention to the control. He did not release the magic one by one, but instead used multiple spells at the same time. This can also be considered a composite magic of a transfiguration spell and a fire spell. Since it can't be transformed, destroy it. Tom's eyes were sharp and he was muttering something in a low voice. A ball of light jumped out of the magic wand and ran above his head. A thick beam of magic power shot out from it and crashed into the giant flaming arrow. A violent explosion sounded. Fortunately, Tom had placed a soundproofing spell on the entire Quidditch field beforehand, otherwise the explosion would have been enough to wake up the students of the 3 colleges and all the professors. The Slytherins couldn't wake up, they were buried underground and the sound couldn't reach there. The giant flaming arrow was blown into countless pieces. Tom took advantage of the situation and turned the pieces into countless tiny arrows, which were all reflected towards Snape. But Snape jumped around like a slippery loach, and his cloak was also covered with magic, giving it strong defensive power. Beams of magic spells crisscrossed the Quidditch pitch, and colorful lights appeared, forming a vortex-like storm between the children. Tom tried his best, but he found that he was no match for the enemy. What if I took the medicine and cheated? The time for development was too short. At most, he had been learning magic for less than half a year. Snape was not a mediocre person, but a diligent genius who had been concentrating on his studies. Whether in terms of the number of spells he controlled or the power of the spells, he was still some distance away from Snape. As if he had sensed Tom's decline, Snape cast spells a little faster. Plan. An alloy door panel appeared, blocking the attack that was like a wind spell, and Snape was startled. The strength of this metal, was it something Tom made up on the spur of the moment? He thought about it carefully and realized something was wrong. He looked at Tom's pocket and saw that the door panel was summoned from his pocket. So, this guy fights with a shield. Tom drew a square with his magic wand, and the door panel transformed into an iron box that wrapped around him. Tom's muffled voice came from inside, "Professor, no more fighting. Let's stop here for today and continue next time." Snape was so angry that he laughed again. "I'm about to win, you told me to take a break, next time? Despicable Riddle!" Snape shouted angrily, "How dare you use such a sinister spell as the Tinnitus Curse?" After saying that, the offensive, which had been briefly paused, resumed again. Tom was also stunned by Snape's move. "You actually gave him the blame? Could you be any more shameless?" Unfortunately, no matter how hard Snape bombarded it, the iron box remained motionless, except that the surface had some burnt brown and scratches. Snape was also completely convinced. "Riddle, where did you find this thing? Why is it so hard? Professor, please don't waste your energy." Tom's leisurely voice came from inside, "I don't know where its limit is. Unless you use those vicious black magic, you can't open my box." This door panel was just found in the Room of Requirement. At that time, he needed a prop with the strongest defensive power, so the Room of Requirement moved this thing out. Now it seems that the Room of Requirement is reliable for once, as it can make Snape helpless. Advertisement black magic? Snape looked around. The Quidditch pitch had been completely destroyed by the fight between the two men. If powerful dark magic was used here, the situation would be out of control. "Come out of your turtle shell," Snape said unhappily. "Next time you use this thing to fight me, there's no need to come looking for me." "Professor, are you sure you won't continue to do that after I come out?" Tom asked cautiously. Snape suppressed his anger and said, "I am a professor. How could I deceive a student like you? You said Slytherins don't lie to Slytherins." Snape turned and left. "You can just hide in there for the night." Tom quickly restored the door panel to its original state and put the money back into his pocket. "Professor, please don't leave. This is such a mess, I can't clean it up by myself." Snape sneered at the scene. "If you were not a student of my academy, I would not only deduct your points for using the traceless extension spell illegally, but also send you to Azkaban." Tom treated his words as nonsense and started to use the repair spell to repair the lawn. He drew a center line in the middle of the field. The meaning was obvious: half for each person, don't try to be lazy. Snape didn't care and waved his wand, and the two of them started working. Tom would not miss this good opportunity to ask Snape for advice on some of the problems he had just encountered. "You're too obsessed with showing off your skills." Snape's eyes were sharp, and he immediately pointed out Tom's biggest problem: what is the most important thing in a battle between wizards? Tom hesitated for a moment and replied, "Seize the opponent's wand, or make the enemy lose the ability to resist." "Don't you know that?" Snape glanced at him. "Then why are you competing with my spell? You have to neutralize every attack of mine and deal with it beautifully. What do you think this is, a performance contest? This is nothing but showing off your skills." Tom fell into deep thought. It seems, that's indeed the case. His attention was focused on Snape's magic more than his own. Apart from the initial attack, he seemed to be struggling with the spell afterwards. Fighting is not just a simple exchange of magic. Snape's voice became much calmer. Tom's quick insight made him feel much more relaxed. If it were that stupid student, he probably wouldn't have realized where his problem lay. Many times, you could have used a more time-saving and labor-saving method to deal with my attack, but you didn't. Instead, you wasted a lot of opportunities to turn defense into offense. Your magic power is indeed exaggerated. You don't look like a student at all. But there are always people stronger than you in the world now. Snape said meaningfully, until you reach that point, then just keep a low profile and don't always try to be the center of attention. The one who laughs the last is the real winner. Tom nodded and kept these words in mind. On the way back to the castle, Tom couldn't help but ask a very stupid question. Professor, have you ever seen Professor Dumbledore take action? How long can I last in a duel with him at my current level? Snape looked at Tom for a long time as if he were a monster, then he chuckled, 9 to 1, he can lift you up 9 times with one spell. Tom, how does he compare to other wizards? Tom asked again. The definition of strength in the magic world was too vague, and the number of wizards he had seen was pitifully small. He could only rely on Snape to keep things under control. Snape paused and stared at Tom for several seconds. With your current accomplishments, it will not be a problem for you to pass the Auror's combat test, and you will get excellent results. However, those tricks behind the scenes and those behind the scenes tricks are not within the scope of the test. Don't let your arrogance ruin your life. He guessed that Tom might be going to do something dangerous, so he could only warn him. I see. Tom nodded. At breakfast the next day, Tom was still reviewing the battle last night and Snape's criticism. In the past, whether facing human opponents or magical animal enemies, he was always the one standing on a high ground, so he used all kinds of gorgeous and clever means to fight the enemies, which gave him a crushing posture. This is why many senior students are afraid of Tom, because he looks intimidating. But if it were Snape, he could fight for 1 or 2 rounds and win with an ordinary spell, which would look unremarkable. But can you say he's better than Snape? When the opponent was Snape, he was the challenger, and the disadvantage of this approach became apparent, it was flashy and impractical. So Tom came to the conclusion that fighting style cannot be changed. Being strong or not is only a temporary issue, while being handsome or not is a lifelong matter. Advertisement he won't change, even if he dies. The problem isn't with him, but that his current strength isn't strong enough. He just needs to practice more. If he waited until he surpassed Snape in all aspects and then fought him in this way, it would seem like he was just bullying the weak one. After figuring this out, Tom felt relieved. The damn old bat almost ruined his morale. Tom. Daphne called Tom back from his distracted state, we still have to fill this out before we can get on the train. Tom looked down at a notice in front of him, regulations on magic restrictions for underage wizards during holidays. The notice clearly stipulates that wizards under the age of 17 are considered underage wizards and are prohibited from using magic outside of school. Young wizards from Muggle families are prohibited from revealing any information about the wizarding world except to their immediate family members, parents, grandparents, and any magic items are prohibited from circulating in the Muggle world. There are so many restrictions, just like deliberate restrictions on Muggle students. This is exactly the case. The Ministry of Magic's detection method mainly relies on tracking threads, but tracking threads cannot accurately detect who is casting a spell, they can only detect whether someone is casting a spell around the wand. Even for mixed blood families, as long as there are adult wizards around, they can easily get away with this crude trick, not to mention pureblood families. Only the elders at home need to pay attention when they are at work. But students from Muggle families are in a miserable situation. I couldn't touch a wand during the holiday, and I had forgotten how to cast a spell. I didn't know how long it would take me to get used to it again after school started. I fell behind every year. When I graduated, would I be able to compete with purebloods and half-bloods for jobs? Tom smiled, but there was no warmth in his smile. He signed his name on the magical parchment. The arm cannot twist the thigh, and now he is not even an arm, just a small fry. He has remembered this grudge and will take revenge sooner or later. The Statute of Secrecy was signed at the end of the 17th century, and the people who drafted this law are basically dead now, but it doesn't matter. The debts of the previous generation must be repaid by the next generation. At 9 o'clock, the students took a carriage to Hogsmeade railway station. The first-year students looked curiously at the empty front of the carriage. There was neither a horse nor any other means of movement. It was as if it was moving by magic. Tom couldn't see the thestrals either, so he just reached out. I touched it and felt the soft fur. Yet she had a very docile temper and had no intention of arguing with him. He took the little wizards to their destination without complaint. After getting on the train, Tom, Hermione, and Daphne occupied a treasure chest. Because there were students staying on campus, the train was a lot more relaxed than when the school started. Daphne bought a lot of snacks as usual, and the three of them ate and drank along the way. They didn't notice the passage of time, and the train slowly pulled into King's Cross Station. There were already quite a few people on platform 9 3/4, all of them were parents who came to pick up their children. Hermione's parents also came, but without the guidance of a wizard, they could not enter the platform and could only wait inside the station. After the train stopped, Tom and his companions waited for some of the others to get off before they came out of the compartment. He immediately locked onto a beautiful woman who stood out from the crowd. The woman was tall, over 1.75 meters tall, and was wearing a pure white fur coat. It was decorated with some accessories and had a leather bracelet in her hand. Tom was sure that this was definitely Teeny's mother. Sure enough, Daphne also saw the woman and jumped up and down happily, waving her hands, "Mom." The woman smiled, and Daphne took Tom's hand and hurried to meet her. Tom turned around and gave Hermione a look, then raised his hand and waved it as if making a phone call. Hermione smiled knowingly and walked out of the platform through the stone pillars. "Mother." Daphne threw herself into Mrs. Greengrass's arms. "I missed you so much. I've had a hard time without you these past few months." "Really?" Mrs. Greengrass did not believe her daughter's sweet words, but instead focused her eyes on Tom, who was standing quietly aside. "This must be Tom." Tom bowed slightly. "Hello, Auntie, I am Tom Riddle." Advertisement. Chapter 78. Mrs. Greengrass received 1 or 2 letters from her eldest daughter almost every week. At the beginning, the letters were filled with Daphne's longing for an attachment to home, and she would often greet her and care about Astoria's physical condition. But ever since he asked for the money that time, things started to go wrong. The first one is a family letter, and the second one should be called Tom Riddle's Days at Hogwarts. The frequency of appearance of the name Tom in it almost exceeds the total of hers and Astoria's. From that time on, Mrs. Greengrass began to wonder what kind of person Tom Riddle was, to the point of being able to charm her daughter so much. After seeing the real person today, Mrs. Greengrass couldn't help but nodded. As expected of her daughter, she has a good eye. She is sure that Tom is definitely the best-looking one in Hogwarts without knowing him. Etc. All the money Daphne asked for, wasn't it all spent on this child? Never mind, it's not much anyway, not a big deal. Mrs. Greengrass didn't know at this time that she had not only guessed the correct answer, but she had also guessed wrong. Not only her money, but also her second daughter's money, all went into someone's pocket. After a few pleasantries, Mrs. Greengrass became more and more fond of the polite Tom and took the initiative to invite him. "Tom, why don't you spend Christmas with Daphne? She said in the letter that she would not have made so much progress this semester without your help. It's a good opportunity for you to take care of her. Don't you know that I can't control this child at home?" "Mom." The girl couldn't help but complain. Why did she tell her embarrassing story? She had always acted like a lady in front of Tom, but now it was all exposed. But Daphne still looked at the boy expectantly. Even though she had been rejected before, what if Tom changed his mind? Unfortunately, Tom refused again this time and said, "I'm sorry, ma'am, I'm afraid it won't work this holiday. Daphne and I have already made an appointment to visit you next summer vacation, and I may even stay for a long time. Just don't think I'm annoying." "How could that be?" Mrs. Greengrass smiled gently, "The longer you stay, the better. You are always welcome." Tom also smiled and nodded, and after saying a few words, he took the initiative to leave so as not to disturb the reunion of mother and daughter. An hour and a half later, he returned to the children's home. Luckily he had the key with him. No one was home. Seth was in boarding school and didn't plan to come back for Christmas. Several other problem children who were temporarily boarding there also left. There was a layer of dust in the room, and it seemed that Mrs. Armand had not been there for some time. Picking up the cleaning tools, Tom began to clean the house. This made him a little uncomfortable. He was used to using magic to do many things, and he felt restrained after coming back. After a long time of cleaning up, Tom ate a few snacks he had brought in the car, took a shower and fell asleep. The next day, he took a bus to the city center and entered the Diagon house through the leaky cauldron. There were a lot of people coming and going today. Tom saw many of his Hogwarts classmates, and some of them nodded to him. He went to a fan clothing store and chose a winter robe that cost 30 galleons for himself. He put it on the spot and then came to the vicinity of Gringotts, found an alley and went in. The alley is very winding and narrow, only enough for 3 people to walk side by side. After walking for 5 minutes, I felt relieved. Well, actually it's not very open. Compared to the spacious Diagon alley, the road here is more than half narrower. The surrounding houses are also dirty and dilapidated, the signs are hung crookedly, and even the sky has become foggy. This is Nocturne Alley, or the Wizard's Black Market. Some inconvenient things can be bought and sold here. Tom rubbed his face, sorted out his expression, and then walked into the alley. He looked at his surroundings in panic, like a little wizard who had lost his way and entered here by mistake. It is called an alley, knockover alley, but in fact it is more like a small maze like a spider web. In addition to the main road, there are many branching alleys, and many shops are closed. Tom passed by a shop door. There was a sign saying potion shop and 2 human bones hanging below. He turned pale with fright. "Are you lost, dear?" a voice suddenly sounded in my ears. Tom looked over and saw a hunchbacked old witch standing in front of him, holding a plate of dead people's nails. The old witch smiled at him, revealing her moss-covered teeth. Tom held his breath, smiled in surprise and nodded repeatedly, "Yes, yes, I am lost, I want to go to Diagon Alley." "Haha, kid, come with me, I'll take you out." The old witch's smile became more and more disgusting, and her voice was gentle. She waved to Tom and led him forward. The two came to the middle of the alley, turned into a small road, and after twists and turns, they arrived in front of a door. "Just go through here and you'll reach Diagon Alley," said the old witch, motioning Tom to go in. Tom pushed the door open without hesitation. There was a yard inside, and a middle-aged wizard was standing there. Advertisement. The wizard was a little stunned when he saw Tom suddenly rushing in. The old witch walked in and her disgusting fake smile had disappeared. "I'm lucky. I met a lost chick. From her clothes, I know her family is well off. I can make a lot of money this time." The wizard immediately smiled as well. But what puzzled them was that there was no panic or fear on Tom's face, but instead he was smiling. The wizard looked at the old witch and said, "You didn't bring a fool with you, did you?" The old witch was also puzzled. This shouldn't be the case. The boy just spoke quite normally. Tom smiled and said, "Don't worry, I'm not a fool, I'm just happy." The wizard was even more speechless. "Why are you so happy? Boy, you haven't figured out the situation yet, right? Tell us your family information and ask them to pay the ransom." Tom shook his head. "I'm just happy that I can handle 2 important things at once. Don't worry, I'll send her to meet my parents now." As Tom spoke, he stretched out his left hand like lightning and grabbed the old witch beside him. A layer of frost covered his palm, which then condensed into a sharp ice cone and, with Tom's own strength, pierced into the old witch's neck. Puff! The old witch's throat was stabbed through, and she made a ho-ho sound, but she couldn't utter a word. The middle-aged wizard didn't react at all. He couldn't imagine that Tom would suddenly kill him. He was still in a daze and the stun spell had already fallen on him. Plop! The two fell to the ground at the same time. The difference was that the old witch was dead, while the wizard was just unconscious. Tom stood there, just watching the blood oozing from the hole in the old witch's neck. Everything has a first time, including murder. Don't be fooled by the ruthless and decisive action just now. In fact, it was a plan that had been made long ago. It was carried out forcefully, and the after effects came out now. Tom would not miss such a good practice opportunity. He forced himself to watch the blood drain out, then he slowly exhaled and went forward to search the body. Soon, 2 magic wands and a dozen gabon bullets were found. He went around the room again and pulled out dozens of galleons and hundreds of sickles, but Nat was too lazy to take them. Really poor. This was Tom's first feeling. These 2 people were engaged in shady business, and they ended up accumulating such a small fortune. But this is the reality at the bottom of the wizarding world. It is unknown what the relationship between these 2 people is, but it is very likely that neither of them is a real graduate of Hogwarts. Although almost all wizards in Britain study at Hogwarts, there are exceptions. Only those who have a magical riot before the age of 11 and whose record is recorded by Hogwarts can be eligible for admission. What about the magic riot after the age of 11? The magic world has various crash courses in spells, and that is where these people end up. Without a diploma, skills, or connections, one can only struggle at the bottom and resort to crooked means. Of the two wizards just now, the stronger one should be the old witch. The aura of black magic on her body has been leaking out uncontrollably, and her face has also been affected and changed. On the contrary, the male wizard is much more normal. Tom tried it and found that the wizard's wand was more suitable for him. The girl's wand almost backfired when he used it. The wizard's was at least functional, but it was far inferior to his own. This is Tom's way of dealing with the fact that minors can't perform spells outside of school. Since my wand has been traced, why not just not use it? I can just keep a distance from my wand when casting spells, so the Ministry of Magic won't notice anything. The only problem is that it's not very convenient to use. After casting a few spells in succession and finding the feel of the wand, Tom pulled out a strand of the wizard's hair, put it into the polyjuice potion, and drank it. After drinking it, Tom turned into a wizard with his teeth bared, and his handsome little face wrinkled into a ball. This smell is so disgusting. Ding dong. The bell inside the door rang, the door of Borgin and Burke's shop was pushed open, and Tom, transformed into a middle-aged wizard, walked in. He looked at the merchandise in the store, which included withered human hands, blood-stained playing cards, motionless glass, and various human bones. Advertisement: there is nothing in here that you can buy and take into Hogwarts. Ah, a guest has arrived. The door behind the counter was opened, and a hunchbacked man appeared behind the counter. He was stunned for a moment when he saw Tom, then smiled and said, "Michael, where did you make your fortune? Want to spend money with me? Don't pretend, you know I'm not him." Tom withdrew his gaze from the merchandise and looked at Liget. "Mr. Bach, we are just a simple customer and seller. If we can avoid some useless intrigue, we can both save a lot of trouble." The guest is really wise and decisive. After a brief moment of surprise, Borgin and Burke regained their businesslike smile and said, "Michael, a scumbag, doesn't have the aura you have. If it weren't for the old witch who protected him, he was eaten alive by the robbers in Nocturne Alley." 00, Tom nodded without comment. The old witch won't come out again, so there's nothing to worry about. This time, Bach's smile became even more intense. "It is my honor to serve such a good customer as you. Our store just received a new batch of goods yesterday, and the prices are absolutely fair." Tom stated his requirements: "I need fresh or well-preserved dragon hearts, sphinx eyes, and claws." Bach's smile froze. "A fresh dragon heart? Sir, do you really not know how many laws you need to break to get this?" Tom asked back, "If I could buy it legally, would I still come to you?" Boakton I was speechless. Even though Snape's office displays contraband items such as dragon hearts, and Ollivander uses dragon heartstrings to make wands, who are they? Potion Master? Wand Master? There are fire dragons that disobey discipline and die, and when their lifespans come to an end, the old dragons use their possessions to their full potential. Isn't that normal? But how to divide it? Yifen is not as good as ordinary hands. Well, I'm really looking forward to meeting you, my picky guest. Bach sighed, "I have sphinx eyeballs and claws in stock, but I don't know if you'll find a fresh dragon heart, even if there is no blood left." Tom frowned immediately. "But..." Bach changed the subject, "If I get any news, I can sell it to customers, or buy it for them and keep it." "How much for the eyeball and the claw?" Tom asked. 500 galleons, a pair of eyes and a pair of claws, complete set. This price is definitely too high. The price of a unicorn horn is no more than 100 galleons. The preciousness of the sphinx is almost the same as that of the unicorn, and the price of the material should be about the same. At least twice the normal price. But there is no way, it's a black market, it's a black market, how can it not be black? Tom still paid the money. He had used some of the more than 1,000 galleons Daphne had given him before, and with his own money and the windfall he had just picked up, after paying the 500, Tom had the money was less than 300 galleons. After Tom received the materials, he asked again, "How much do you want to sell the dragon's heart for?" Bach thought for a moment and held up 3 fingers, 3,000 galleons. The economic value of a fire dragon is approximately between 15,000 and 30,000. Dragon blood, dragon skin, dragon meat, and every part of it have been utilized to the extreme. As the core of the heart, Tom can accept this price. The last time he borrowed from Snape's office was about 1/5 of a dragon's heart. A whole heart would definitely be enough for Tom to develop drug resistance. The price is fair. Tom nodded, but I don't have that much money. Bach, who originally thought that Tom accepted the offer, couldn't laugh anymore. Why does this sound so much like a robber? Advertisement. Chapter 79. I heard that. Tom didn't pay attention to Bach's face-changing skills and rubbed his fingers unconsciously. Mr. Bach's shop not only buys and sells goods, but also intelligence work, and some shady commissions are also within your business scope. Thanks also to the 7th grade prefect, C. Swell Burke. If he hadn't accidentally revealed a lot of information, Tom wouldn't have made plans in advance and decided to spend the entire holiday in Borgin and Burke's. Being a mercenary in Bach not only makes money, but also increases practical experience, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. The only thing that makes Tom feel awkward is it seems that Fufu also worked here in the past. Thinking of this, Tom subconsciously looked at the disappearing cabinet in the corner. We have to find a way to get this thing. How can we allow anyone to explode Hogwarts anus at any time through this vanishing cabinet? Borgin and Burke took a deep look at Tom's changed Michael. It seems that the guest was introduced by an acquaintance. Not everyone can know his intelligence and hiring business. At least only wizards recognized by him and with a certain level of skill can get in touch with him. Now Bach is more and more curious about Tom's identity, but he will not rashly choose to touch the other party's secrets. Tom smiled and said, "Then for the sake of our acquaintance, give me a few tasks that are short in time, close in distance, and high in pay." "How difficult is it?" Bach asked. "Difficulty?" Tom smiled. "As long as they don't ask me to assassinate Dumbledore, other tasks are no different to me." What a big tone! Burke was amazed in his heart. He could see Tom's strong self-confidence and his arrogant attitude that he didn't care about anyone except Dumbledore. Tom does have the confidence. At worst, he can just let Andres play as his substitute. A few minutes will be enough to decide everything. That's perfect. Bach's fake smile reappeared on his face. There is indeed a very difficult commission here. I was hesitating whether to take it. Since the client is so confident, I will let you try. What commission? Tom asked curiously. Bach produced a sheet of silver paper. One of my old customers, Mr. Laws, has been in some trouble recently and is being hunted by international aurors. The commission requires that you help him escape from the UK. The reward is 1,000 galleons. International auror? Tom was stunned. This is a big case. The International Confederation of Wizards is the largest and most influential wizarding organization in the world. All ministries of magic are members of the Confederation. Although it cannot interfere in the internal affairs of various countries, it also has its own armed organizations and can ignore national restrictions and enforce the law across regions. To be hunted by such an organization, he is definitely a big shot. Tom's curiosity came up. Can I ask what mistake Mr. Laws made? Bach sighed. He just made a mistake that all men make and slept with the wrong woman. May I ask who that woman is? The wife of the deputy minister of the ministry. Tom, this is the consequence of not being able to control the lower body. The small head controls the big head. However, Tom still decided to take the task. He was not a vicious dark wizard. He was just a soft-hearted person who could not bear to see others break up a couple. Leave the task to me. How should the commission be paid? Should the client give it to me or should you give it to me? And how should I find him? Bach pushed the banknote over and said, the commission is in an anonymous Gringotts account. Your mission will be completed after Royce leaves England. I will give you the vault number and password at that time. Light this silver paper and you will be able to teleport to the client's location. Try to be as fast as possible. I don't think he can hold on for much longer. After listening to what Burke said, Tom nodded, picked up the silver paper and turned away. From Nocturne Alley to Diagon Alley, out of the leaky cauldron, he took a taxi directly back to the children's home. Then Tom hid his wand, went to Seth's room, took out a tomcat mask and put it on his head. He still wants to use Michael's identity for a few more days, so he can't just go and save people so brazenly. Advertisement. When the silver paper began to burn, it was as if a hook hooked Tom's belly button. Immediately, his feet left the ground and flew forward in the whistling cold wind. The scenery in his sight became blurred because of the fast speed, until finally it turned into a white light. After flying for an unknown amount of time, Tom felt a strong resistance that bounced him out of his high-speed flight, and his feet landed on the ground. This is a forest. I don't know where exactly it is, but it should be in a county north of London, not outside England. He looked at the silver paper in his hand and saw that there was still a little bit of it left that had not been burned out. It was not delivered to its destination, but was stopped by anti-apparition and Port-KM magic. But the distance was not far. Tom could already hear the explosions coming from the depths of the jungle and the screams of spells cutting through the air. He cast a lightness spell on himself and rushed over quickly. It didn't take long before they found the two fighting parties. 3 male wizards were besieging another male wizard, and a female wizard was standing farther away to provide support. Tom did not act rashly, but instead attacked the wizard who was watching first. He is not handsome and is a bit short, about 1.75 meters tall, and seems to be even shorter than Mrs. Greengrass. Can you be the next door boss under these conditions? Tom even suspected that he had found the wrong person. The besieged wizard was in danger, trying his best to resist the curse. Several accessories on his body were glowing. They were alchemical props that could be used in battle. Each one was very valuable. The besiegers had already noticed Tom. The most relaxed witch stared at him and shouted warily, "International Aura is handling the case. You have nothing to do here. Get out of here." Tom ignored her warning and asked the besieged wizard, "Is that Mr. Laws?" It's me," the man shouted, ducking to avoid another spell. "Are you the one with that old man? You're finally here. Any helpers?" Several international auras immediately became alert. Tom no longer hesitated, raised his wand and cast a few spells. The 3 people, who had been on guard for a long time, immediately released the iron armor spell to stop the curse, but the offensive was forced to stop. "Everyone, please give me a favor and let Mr. Laws leave England safely." Tom walked into the battlefield step by step, and Rouse hurried over. When the two were 20 steps away, Tom signaled him to stop as well. "The most important thing when you are out there is not to trust anyone, even your client." A fat wizard panted, stared at Tom fiercely and threatened, "Do you want to become a fugitive like him, wizard? If you leave now, I can pretend that nothing happened." Tom sighed, "I'm sorry, I don't want to get into trouble with you cops, but Mr. Laws gave me too much." "Great, brother!" Rouse cheered loudly, "I like your money-obsessed personality." There was no point in talking anymore. After confirming Tom's position, the 4 auras took decisive action. Laser-like red lights shuttled through the air, cutting through the thick fog. The witch who was originally responsible for the coordination dealt with Tom, while the other 3 continued to harass Ross. Tom raised his hand and deflected a spell. "Such weak magic, are you really an auror?" he said in surprise. Compared with the magic cast by Snape, this magic was simply a spoiled one, so Tom used a little more magic power, and the spell went too far, and did not fly towards the other 3 auras according to the trajectory he had imagined. "Are you insulting me?" The female aura was angry. "Just duel, why do you have to make personal attacks? I'm just stating the facts." Tom reacted with a few spells. The female aura wanted to imitate him and cast a flying spell, but she was blown away, her body thrown high into the air and landed on the ground. Another stunning spell followed. She quickly rolled over to avoid the stunning spell, and cast a spell while rolling. Tilting his head to avoid a red surveillance, Tom pointed his wand at a big tree and raised it. The tree was uprooted and smashed towards the female auror. "Blast to pieces!" A male auror saw his companion fall into a disadvantage so quickly and rushed to help. The thick tree was blown into countless pieces. Now they had to divide their forces to deal with Tom, and the situation suddenly became 1v2. The lack of one person did not relieve the pressure on Rouse. His actual combat ability was not strong. He could only hold on until now by spending money and wearing all kinds of equipment. There was no change on Tom's side either. 2 people were beaten by him, even worse than Ross. Soon the female auror's robe was torn to shreds, revealing a little bit of her underwear. "Advertisement, you're actually going out topless in this kind of weather!" Tom exclaimed. He didn't expect that the city could play so wildly. "A hole. My wizard robe has a heat-insulating effect. I was wearing underwear. And you broke it." The female auror was furious. This wizard robe cost her 100 galleons, almost a month's salary. If 2 people are not enough, then use 3. If 3 people are not enough, then use 4. In the end, Ross was simply left alone. 4 well-trained Aurors attacked Tom without any moral principles and were ruthless, using high-powered magic. This is not just a simple addition problem. Aurors are not only trained in individual combat, but also in teamwork, which is an essential ability for them. The 4 of them occupied 4 positions, which enabled them to support each other and not give Tom a chance to attack in a group. It seemed that they had stabilized the situation. Ross did not take this opportunity to escape. The anti-apparition array had not yet lost its effect, and he still had the tracking spell on him. Even if he ran away now, he would still be caught up if Tom was dealt with. He took the opportunity to rest and recover some magic power before helping. But Tom had no intention of giving Rouse a chance to make a move. After a period of testing, he found out, these 4 people were really weak. Snape lied to him? Is this level enough to be an Auror? Tom actually didn't know that different people have different standards for passing. The full score is 100. Some people may think that 90 is a passing score, but some people are happy and satisfied with 50. The same is true for Aurors. Snape's criteria are completely different from those of the Ministry of Magic. The Aurors he mentioned are elites like Kingsley. The others are either trash or nothing. The 4 people sent to chase Ross were just rookies who had just joined the company a few years ago, and the oldest was only 3,000 years old. That's it. Tom, who had already determined that he had overestimated his enemy, lost his patience for delay. The ball of light that had appeared during the battle with Snape reappeared, jumped above his head, and shot a red beam of light at the female Auror. Iron armor protection. The wave of magic hit her, and her armor spell only lasted for a moment before it was shattered. She was sent flying backwards again, and this time she fell directly to the ground and passed out. Then this thick column of magic light lashed towards the other 3 people like a whip. This is one of the advanced magics taught by Andrus, without any fancy tricks. It is only highly concentrated and compressed magic power that moves according to the caster's will, and can attack 3.0 or defend. Even Snape was jealous and took out several magic spells he created himself and wanted to exchange them with Tom, but was rejected by Tom. If you don't have the individual strength, it's useless even if you have good cooperation. 2.5 seconds later, the other 3 Aurors also lost their ability to resist. Tom cast disarming spells one after another, and the wands of several Aurors spun and flew back into his hands. Ross stared at the Aurors who fell to the ground, and then looked at Tom who was selling wands wholesale. Where did this old man Burke find such tough guys that he could defeat a well-trained Auror team in just a few rounds? Damn, bro, you are so awesome. Royce quickly flattered him. Tom looked at him strangely. You are obviously white, why do you speak with a West Coast accent? You know the West Coast. Royce was even more surprised. He looked at Tom as if he was looking at a fellow rapper. I learned it from those Muggle rappers. How about I learn it? Is it similar? Not nearly as good as them. Well, I'll have to keep trying. Royce sighed, looked at Tom's wand, which he hadn't put down yet, and asked in a pleading tone, Brother, what's the matter with this? Please stop, they are just hunting me, don't kill anyone. Tom tilted his head and said strangely, I would be crazy to kill the international Aurors. Even if you want to kill them, they will stop you. For 1,000 galleons, you want me to form an alliance with the International Confederation of Wizards. Personal enmity. Are you crazy or am I crazy? Rolls, well, he was just being sentimental. Advertisement. Chapter 80. Everyone, you heard what Mr. Laws and I just said. Except for the unconscious female Auror, the other 3 male Aurors were only injured but not unconscious, and they had struggled to get up. Tom shook the wand in his hand, give Mr. Rouse a day, and give you a day to heal your wounds. As long as he leaves England, the rest of the matter will have nothing to do with me. What do you think? The 3 Aurors looked at each other and saw the hesitation and struggle in each other's eyes. Tom also noticed their loosening up and continued to persuade them, we are all in this business. It's not easy for me to make a little money, and it's even more difficult for you who are paid a fixed salary. Why do you risk your life for that little money? If you don't accept my proposal, I will have to break your wands. Several people's faces changed drastically. No. Alan, don't hesitate. Rouse said, I just made a small mistake, and Graves, that BD, was using public resources for personal gain. Shut up, Wilkinson, a fatter Auror said angrily, are you still a human being? Graves was your former teacher. You even slept with his wife. WTF. Tom's mouth corners were twitching wildly under the mask, and his eyelids were twitching wildly. Things are becoming more and more abstract. The deputy Auror minister named Graves was once Ross's teacher. Teacher? Have you forgotten how he treated me? Royce was also furious, and said indignantly, when he targeted me, I was determined to take revenge. Do you think I want to sleep with his wife? I am 150 kilograms and 1.5 meters tall. Do you know how much effort it took me to get hard? Not only Tom couldn't hold it anymore, the three international Aurors also had strange expressions. The fat man named Alan thought about the appearance and figure of his boss's wife, and looked at Ross with sympathy. However, this also gave both sides a way out and the atmosphere eased a little. I agree to your terms. We will not pursue Wilkinson today. I hope you will not interfere in the future. Alan said reluctantly that even if he wanted to continue chasing them, he couldn't do it because his internal organs had been displaced and he had to receive treatment as soon as possible. Besides, what the mysterious man said is not wrong. Why would you risk your life with such little money a month? Thank you very much for your cooperation. Tom returned the wand happily, not worrying that the other party would go back on his word. Wizards in the magic world are actually quite afraid of death, especially the Aurors who have a bright future and are considered the elite of society. Even fewer of them would fight to the death with dark wizards. And it seems that Alan and Lau don't know each other. Sure enough, after getting the wand, Alan used the levitation spell to carry the unconscious female Auror, and slowly retreated with his companions, walked out of the anti-apparition magic circle, and immediately activated apparition to escape. Ross breathed a sigh of relief, knowing that he was temporarily safe, and immediately extended his hand to Tom enthusiastically. Brother, I am grateful to you for helping me today, otherwise I would have been arrested. My name is Laws Wilkinson, what's your name? Michael. Then I will call you Michael. Old Burke is really well connected. He knows a powerful wizard like you. Royce knew that this was probably a fake name, but he didn't care. He thanked Tom with a smile and took out all the money he had on him. One day is enough for me to travel a long way, far more than what I asked for. Brother, this is all I have, don't think it's too little. Tom did not take the dragon leather wallet, but asked in confusion, you are already a fugitive, you don't have some money to deal with the future, what will you do if you give it to me? Royce smiled carefreely, hey, it's nothing. My destination this time is Germany. I have relatives there. The entire German wizarding world and the International Federation of Witches are at odds with each other. The international Aurors can't do anything to me there. Tom nodded. This is what purebloods are like. They have relatives wherever they go. Especially in the United States, all the purebloods are immigrants from other places, so it is hard to tell who are the main family and who are the branch family. However, this was the first time he heard about the conflict between the German Ministry of Magic and the Federation of Witches. Tom suddenly said, you have a tracking spell on you, I can help you get rid of it. Really? Royce was overjoyed, but immediately became embarrassed, but I don't have any money. How about I transfer the money to you through Gringotts when I arrive in Germany? Let old Burke receive it, it will be safe. Advertisement okay. Tom agreed with a smile, but you have to agree to one condition of mine. What conditions? Royce frowned. I want to know what happened between you and that deputy minister. No problem. Ross immediately began to tell the story with great joy, and it was obvious that he was very proud of what he had done. As he told the story, Tom also understood the whole story. Laws Wilkinson, a graduate of Dharmamani. The feud between the two men started from their families. The American magical world was managed by the 12 Aurors who were the first batch of immigrants. After the death of these 12 Aurors, the family inheritance was also cut off. But some companies continue to grow because of their original shares. The Wilkinson family and the Graves family of Rouse are descendants of the 12 Aurors, and have now grown into giants in the American wizarding world. However, these original shareholders were not the same. Some of them were British immigrants, such as Abraham Potter, who was a member of the Potter family and was considered Harry's ancestor. Wilkinson is a German immigrant and Graves is a French immigrant, so those who know about these two countries will understand. Even after they moved to a new continent, the feud between them showed no sign of stopping, and they continued to fight openly and secretly. But even so, Graves would not embarrass a student. In the final analysis, it's still Lau's fault for talking too much. Once, when he was teasing Percival Graves with his friends, he was heard by Robert Graves, who was a professor at the time. This Percival Graves is Robert's biological grandfather, and he also has another identity, the unlucky guy whose identity was replaced by Grindelwald. Grindelwald was very righteous and did not kill Percival, perhaps because Dumbledore's name also contained Percival? But when the truth came out, Percival was rescued, and he lived in great shame, even doubting whether his son was his, because his wife was pregnant during the time when he was impersonated. Can Robert let Rouse go? Relying on his status as a professor and equal family background, he began to bully Ross. Who would have thought that Ross endured it until graduation and secretly slept with Robert's wife? Just go to sleep. He also left a note for Robert, please rest assured, your son is definitely your son. If Robert could still endure this, he would not be a man. He found a random crime to pin on Ross and mobilized the power of international pride to arrest him. After listening to this, Tom also lamented the confusion in the relationships between the characters. But there is one thing he is sure of, Robert's father must be from the Graves family, after all, Grindelwald already has someone in his heart. His curiosity was satisfied, and Tom cast an anti-tracking spell on Ross as promised, offsetting the tracking spell cast by the international Auror. Ross just felt a sense of relief, and after thanking Tom, the two parted ways. The next day, Tom continued to use the polyjuice potion to transform into Michael and came to Borgin and Burke's shop. Guest, you are finally here. After seeing him, Bach's signature fake smile reappeared. Mr. Laws praised you very much. This is your mission fee, and there is an additional reward of 500 galleons. I will advance it for Mr. Laws first. Tom accepted the money without hesitation, and in a blink of an eye, half of the money to buy the dragon's heart was collected. Mr. Bach, are there any similar tasks? Tom asked again. Not yet. Bach shook his head. It's hard to come across a big customer like Mr. Rouse. Other missions either take a long time or involve exploring ruins, so the income is unstable. Tom nodded slightly and said that he was on duty to deliver the letter to Michael's residence. No problem. Bach agreed with a smile. Only after he had fulfilled his promise did Tom leave Nocturne Alley and start to busy himself with the affairs of the Muggle world. He found that everything he did during this holiday seemed to be related to making money. First I earned galleons, and now I'm working non-stop to earn swords. That's right, even in the UK, DOLE is hard currency, after all, its status here is there. Advertisement. Tom first used some tricks to help Michael get a national insurance number and a driver's license, which are equivalent to identity cards in the UK. After he was no longer a black account, he was able to open a bank account and a stock account. Tom took out all his small treasury and threw it all into military-industrial concept stocks, and even slightly doubled the leverage. He didn't know how the US stock market rose or fell or how much it rose after the problems in the north, but he knew with his head that the military industry would take off, and in a few years it would be the famous bubble. At that time, he would buy Microsoft without thinking, and sell them all when he made enough money. He doesn't need a lot of money, he just needs to ensure that he is financially free and buy a few more vacation estates. In fact, the most profitable way is to go directly to the north to reap the physical industry, but he really doesn't have so much time, and doesn't want to invest too much energy in money, so he can only choose this lazy way. Tom was very busy before Christmas. Both Hermione and Daphne sent him letters, in which Hermione invited Tom to visit her home, but he did not agree. Song replied with a few words about his recent situation and did not write any more. He took on 2 more tasks from Bach. One was to threaten a wizard to sell the treasures obtained from the ruins to Bach's shop, and the other was to help collect debts. Bach was right. There were indeed very few big customers like Royce. The reward for completing these 2 tasks was only 200 galleons. However, he took advantage of these few days to learn how to apparate and disapparate, which made things much more convenient. There is still no news about the fire dragon heart that he has been thinking about. Tom has lowered his requirements. As long as it doesn't have a complete heart, even slices are fine as long as they are properly preserved. A shriveled heart is useless because all the life activity inside has been lost. Tom was considering whether to ask Snape for help. With his connections, it shouldn't be a problem to get a few dragon hearts. However, it is very likely that Snape would be reminded of his previous experience of buying something for free. Tom decided to wait a few more days. If he still hadn't found it after school started, he would take the risk. It didn't matter if he was discovered, he was sure he could calm Snape's anger. For example, pull out Peter Pettigrew and give him to Snape as a gift? But this is already a big move. Tom doesn't want to use it so easily, he can definitely gain greater benefits. And so, the time came to the 24th. It snowed heavily in London, adding to the festive atmosphere. Many houses have Christmas trees made of fir trees, with small electric lights and auspicious decorations hanging on them. The lucky star is shining. Tom also put one at the entrance of the children's home. In fact, he had no feelings about Christmas in his previous life, but in this life, due to the changes in the surrounding environment, he gradually, people began to celebrate Christmas as if it were the spring festival. Humans are social creatures. When people around them yearn for and are used to doing something, they will inevitably be affected. This is the power of will, or the terrifying power of will. Many things change subtly. In the afternoon, Ms. Armin came over and was surprised to see Tom come back. They chatted for a while, and Armin gave her blessings and hurried home. She had originally wanted to clean the house before the holiday, but seeing that Tom had already cleaned it up, there was no need for her to stay. After Armin left, Tom cooked himself a fairly sumptuous dinner. His cooking skills were not as good as Hannah's, but it was still edible. He didn't buy the most representative turkey. He took a bite out of curiosity. He still remembers the old and dry taste. The long table was filled with sumptuous dishes. Tom sat at the head of the table, but there was no one below. The boy was also a little dazed. This seemed to be the loneliest Christmas he had ever spent. In the past, there were other children in the children's home, but this year he was the only one there. No, he is not alone. With a thought, Tom opened the study space. Merry Christmas, Andres. Andres, who was sleeping, was awakened. He thought Tom had some questions to ask him, but he didn't expect that what was waiting for him was a blessing. The King of the Century also smiled. Merry Christmas, Tom. Andres's recognition reaches 100, the host is happy advertisement. Chapter 81. Congratulations to the host, the private teacher's recognition has reached 100%, and you have obtained 100 achievement points and a talent extraction opportunity. The host has obtained 100% recognition of your private teacher for the first time, and the reward is being sublimated. Detected that the host's private teacher has mythical attributes, capturing the mythical aura, capturing. Capture completed. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the 12 trials, specially customized version for the host. A series of messages came down, and Tom, who was just about to talk to Andro, was stunned. Andres also noticed his abnormality and asked curiously, Tom, what's wrong with you? Tom did not respond immediately. He was stunned at first, then smiled, and his mouth widened wider and wider until he finally laughed heartily. Ha ha ha, Andres, my talent has evolved, and soon a new colleague will come to accompany you to kill time. Double happiness. What is double happiness? Including the 100 achievement points as a reward, his achievement points now just exceeded 1000. The originally fixed talent extraction was actually evolved by the system, which rewarded him handsomely. Combining the myths and legends of Andres. Who is his mythological character? Hercules, Hercules. In the study space, Andres was so shocked that he was speechless. He felt that Tom's talent was abnormal enough. He had a learning space where his state would not be affected at all, a strongest person of his time as his teacher, and he could also obtain several of his talents and use his strength in times of danger. Potential, learning, combat effectiveness, safety, all aspects can be taken care of. This abnormal talent can actually evolve. Will a true legend appear one day in the future? Or, this time? Tom, let him out quickly. Thinking of this, Andres said excitedly. He was the strongest of an era, but not the strongest in the field of magic. As for the legendary legends, even if they were dead, Andres was still curious about what kind of realm it was. Don't worry, I'll digest it first. After Tom finished speaking, Andres immediately shut up, fearing to disturb him. Tom also began to study the rewards of the system. 12 trials, fate cannot be resisted, but wisdom and courage can also be used to drill holes. Hercules completed 12 epic challenges with immortal, half-body, body. This feat was embodied in mythology and turned into a resource for the host's magic. Effect: complete the trial to obtain corresponding rewards. When all 12 tasks are completed, the host's physique will be sublimated and all current talents and bloodlines will be promoted to the 10th level. First trial, Dragon, kill a fire dragon head-on. No external force is allowed, except the magic wand. Bath in dragon blood and live towards death. Reward, perfect fusion of dragon blood, greatly improving life essence and magic power. Note, the mission time limit is 12 months. If the mission is not completed, it will be randomly refreshed. There is no penalty for failure. Confused, because the writing is confused. After reading the introduction of the system, Tom was stunned for a full minute before he came to his senses. There are 12 trials, and each trial corresponds to a reward. After completing all 12, they can be refined and sublimated, allowing him to reach a higher level in all aspects. It would be fine if the rewards for the trial were ordinary, but look at the first item. In the dragon trial, as long as he kills a fire dragon with his own strength and bathes in dragon blood, he can merge with the dragon's bloodline. There have always been many speculations about the origin of wizards. Although the origin of magical creatures is unpopular, it is definitely a theory that many people believe. This school of thought believes that in ancient times, even humans did not appear, so naturally there were no wizards. At that time, there were only magical animals with various special abilities. In the evolution of species, humans appeared and combined with magical animals, obtaining various bloodlines and magic powers, which led to the existence of wizards. There are even some extreme wizards who believe that goblins, humans, centaurs, and house elves once had a common ancestor and that they are just different branches of human evolution. This kind of argument undoubtedly lowers the status of wizards as the masters of the magical world, so it is labeled as a fallacy. Like Dumbledore, some people suspect that the Dumbledore family has the blood of the phoenix, so a phoenix will appear in the family from time to time. Tom guessed that the reason why Voldemort became what he was later was not only because of the black magic, but also because he might have merged the blood of magical animals. The first reward is the blood of the fire dragon, and the following rewards will definitely be of the same level. Tom was so excited that he wanted to challenge a fire dragon right away. Advertisement, but that's not realistic. First, I can't find it, and second, I can't defeat it. It is no secret in the magic world how difficult it is to kill a fire dragon. Its powerful defense, scorching dragon breath, and sharp claws are all deadly threats to wizards. It takes more than 10 well-trained dragon tamers working in perfect harmony to subdue a fire dragon without getting hurt. It is even more difficult to kill it, as one also has to face the dragon's counterattack before its death. How great it would be if I could be poisoned. The notes Snape gave me contained many recipes for powerful poisons. Tom took a deep breath, suppressed his excitement, and entered the learning space with his consciousness. He asked, "Andres, have you ever killed a dragon?" Andres was a little confused by the question. Weren't we talking about talent evolution? Why was it talking about fire dragons again? But he still nodded and said, "Fire dragon? I've killed two, a black dragon and a longhorned dragon. I killed them both because I was short of money. There was no animal protection law in Andres' time, so they could kill animals at will. Fire dragons are gregarious creatures, and they live in groups on fertile mountains and islands. If you want to kill a fire dragon, well, it basically only requires 3 steps. The first step is to rush into the dragon's nest. The second step is to kill one of its kind while being besieged by a dozen or even dozens of fire dragons. The third step is to walk away. The steps are simple and clear. So what do you think of me?" Tom asked expectantly, "Can I kill a dragon?" Andres looked strange. "You? Kill the dragon?" Tom quickly explained, "It's not your simple and crude method. I want to kill a fire dragon in a head-on battle, a lone fire dragon." "Is that so?" Andres breathed a sigh of relief, thinking that Tom was having a hysterical fit. "It's difficult." Andres told Tom a piece of unfriendly news. "Although those idiots are not strong, they are definitely tough. You have learned white magic, which has the advantage of steady progress. The stronger the magic power and the deeper the understanding, the greater the power it can exert. The disadvantage is that it lacks lethality. This disadvantage is nothing against wizards, as we are all mortals. But facing a fire dragon, you are still a little bit behind. Besides, that thing can fly. If it senses danger to its life, it will want to escape, and you won't be able to stop it. Don't I have a flying broom? Can't I just chase him on it?" Tom was about to say so, but then he remembered the system's requirement. He could only use a wand, and a broomstick was also considered an external force, and he became discouraged. "What about the dark arts?" Tom asked again. Now it was Andres' turn to feel embarrassed. "Dark magic is really not my area of expertise. I have never learned the dark magic of your later generations. But there should be a chance, right? As a person with righteousness written all over his body and a patroness that was extraordinary, Andrus was really not good at black magic. Tom sighed. You only regret not having enough books when you need them, and the same goes for spells. He somewhat regretted pretending to be a good boy in school in order to stop Dumbledore from thinking nonsense, which resulted in him not even being able to master some decent dark magic. No, there is still a chance. Tom's eyes lit up. I was so focused on the 12 trials that I forgot to hire another teacher. If only a master of black magic came, wouldn't there be a chance that the problem could be solved? Andrus, I'm going to summon your colleague. Although you may not know him, he is definitely a powerful wizard at the same level as you. Tom took a deep breath. He didn't believe that all the kings of the centuries were as biased as Andrus. Andrus nodded his head frantically. He was lonely. Tom summoning him out would consume his mental energy, credits. He stayed in the space most of the time. Although he could sleep, he had lived a new life, so what was the point of sleeping every day? Now, finally someone is coming to accompany him. Tom silently thought in his heart, System, spend 1000 achievement points to summon me a Century King level teacher. The system responded immediately. 1000 achievement points disappeared from the system interface and turned into a golden light that drilled out of Tom's body and blasted towards the endless fog of the selected party. Boom! The white mist dissipated, and the space originally the size of the Quidditch field expanded again, more than doubling in size in the blink of an eye. Tom and Andrus stared at the place where the white fog rolled most violently, waiting for the newcomers to appear. At the same time. Advertisement: the top floor of the Nurmengard Tower, Austria. An old man in prison uniform and with white hair had eyes full of shock and disbelief, which finally turned into deep curiosity. Learning space. Tom and Andrus frowned and typed, newcomer, is this a prison uniform? Is there anyone in the King of the Century wearing prison uniform? As a being of this level, Andrus deeply understood this point. The King of the Century could lose, be defeated, and die, but being imprisoned? That's almost impossible. Without a will as strong as steel, how can one harness the powerful torrent of magic power? Is there something wrong with Tom's talent? For a moment, Andrus began to worry about Tom. His 100% approval meant that he regarded Tom as his closest junior, so he naturally hoped that everything was going well for him. Teacher, could you please introduce yourself? Finally, it was Tom who broke the silence. The old man in prison uniform appeared without saying a word. He looked at him and then at Andrus. What a rubbish system. They didn't even give him the information in advance, so now he has to ask. The old man in prison uniform still didn't say anything. He looked around the study space just like Andrus did when he first arrived. He didn't smile until he had looked around the whole place. Gellert Grindelwald, your second teacher, huh? Tom's mouth opened in shock. You are Grindelwald. Andrus carefully searched his memory and the books he read after his resurrection, and finally found information about Grindelwald. Are you the dark wizard defeated by Headmaster Tom? No, didn't they say you were imprisoned? Are you dead? Hearing Dumbledore's name, Grindelwald's eyes narrowed, but soon returned to normal, and he laughed at himself. I'm sorry, a loser like me is not dead yet, and I am still lingering in the Nurmengard Tower. I am amazed by your existence, Mr. Andrus. Your name is still circulating in the wizard world thousands of years later. When it comes to the patroness charm, the first person that everyone thinks of is you. Ha 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 ha, thank you for the compliment. System, what's going on? Why did you summon Grindelwald? While the two were bragging about their business, Tom simply complained directly to the system. System self-checking, check completed, no error occurred in this call. Reminder to the host, the system is not limited to, Dinyo Zhao, summoning deceased wizards as your private teachers. Gellert Grindelwald has reached the standard and agrees with the host to summon Arian. No. Tom was anxious, what if he leaks my secret? How can I kill him if he summons Voldemort one day? He had always thought that his teachers would only be those figures in the long river of history, or even legendary ones who might have walked out of mythology. He had never thought that they would be living contemporary wizards. Host, please rest assured that the system will take the protection of the host's interests as the first core, and all the provisions will serve this purpose. Grindelwald has signed a contract with the learning space and will strictly abide by the rules of the space. When his soul returns to its place, he must not reveal any information about the host. After hearing this, Tom finally felt relieved. After they got out, Grindelwald would be mute and he couldn't tell anything about him, and he didn't have to worry about him telling Dumbledore. But he was still dissatisfied. Grindelwald is fine, but what about Voldemort? Although Fufu's vision and brains are not good, his strength is absolutely beyond doubt. He is the hidden king of the century. The system continues to respond patiently. It is detected that the host has a strong resistance to the existing magician. When the second teacher reaches 100 recognition points, the update program will be activated for optimization. Only then did Tom feel completely relieved. There will be no modern magicians in the future, not only Fufu, but also will not appear here. He then looked at the two people who had quieted down and forced a smile. Mr. Grindelwald, I'm Tom Riddle, nice to meet you. Thanks to 13,754 for the 1,000 point reward, and thanks to everyone for pointing out the typos for me. I have corrected all the typos that can be corrected. Thank you for your support. Advertisement. Chapter 82. But I don't think you're happy right now. Grindelwald joked, making Tom look a little embarrassed. The first Dark Lord was very understanding and said, "Don't worry about me revealing your secret. Your talent is amazing. I can't tell your secret to anyone. Even if I use Truth Serum, Legilimency, and Imperious Curse, others can't detect it. I understand. I was just too shocked. I initially thought that my talent could only summon souls like Andrus." Tom's smile became much more sincere. After all, the system had fulfilled his wish and found him a master of black magic as a teacher. Modern wizards have their own advantages. Grindelwald is not as outdated as Andrus. He can not only teach him, but also Andrus. If another ancient figure came, he would really vomit blood. Grindelwald was also very happy. He was imprisoned for half his life, and most of his body was buried in the ground, but he was able to encounter such magical things and magical people in his later years. Summon powerful wizards from ancient times to serve as teachers, and bring together their many strengths and talents. What kind of monster would this create? Grindelwald expressed his anticipation. Mr. Grindelwald, I won't waste any more time. You came at the right time. I just need to learn the dark arts to kill a dragon. Fire dragon. Grindelwald's eyes flashed with disdain. You are just a beast. Don't bother with that. I will teach you a potion. Use magic to throw it over from a distance. Once it touches the dragon, its scales will rot and then corrode its flesh. Even a strong dragon won't last more than an hour. Tom explained, No, I want to kill the dragon head-on, and I can't use any external force, not to mention potions, magical plants, and flying brooms. Mr. Andrus said that my current strength is not enough to rely on white magic alone. It would be great if I could learn some powerful black magic. Andrus nodded and added, only if you can prevent the fire dragon from flying away. Grindelwald frowned, not expecting so many requests. Wrong? When he received the space information just now, he also knew Tom's basic information. 11 years old, a first-year student at Hogwarts. A first-year student can defeat a dragon by learning black magic. He looked at Andrus in confusion. Andrus smiled cheerfully, Mr. Grindelwald, you are confused because you don't understand Tom. Let's have a duel first, and then you will understand everything. Tom also nodded. That makes sense. Grindelwald laughed, how can a teacher not understand the level of his students? A wand appeared in his hand. It was not the Elder Wand, but Grindelwald's original wand. At the same time, his face and clothes began to change. The old face was quickly regaining its youthfulness and turning into a defiant look. The messy white hair was shortened into short strands. The only thing that remained unchanged was the pair of bright and strange eyes, which were full of mystery. This is the first Dark Lord, Gellert Grindelwald, who once terrified wizards all over the world. The decadent aura was swept away, and Grindelwald turned his wand. Come on Tom, let me see your strength. Tom didn't waste any time. He waited until Andrus retreated a certain distance before attacking decisively. This was a real all-out effort. Grindelwald deflected the incoming spell and raised his eyebrows. It's really good. Grindelwald then spent most of the time on the defensive, feeling the power of Tom's spell, and would occasionally launch a surprise attack to test his ability to respond. 3 minutes later, Grindelwald called a halt and praised, Very good, you have reached the level before I graduated. No wonder Mr. Andrus believes that you have the capital to challenge the dragon. I do have a few dark spells suitable for dealing with large creatures like this. Tom was overjoyed and couldn't wait to start learning. But today is a holiday after all, and Grindelwald has just arrived. It would not be appropriate to exploit him right from the start. After all, he still needs to gain recognition. So Tom exited the study space and gave the two people permission to see what was happening outside. Advertisement: although there are two people, the system is still very conscientious and has not increased the price. It is still 6 credits per hour. After wasting a lot of time in the study space, by when Tom regained consciousness, the sumptuous dishes he had worked so hard to prepare had already gone cold, so he had to reheat them. At the same time, he was still chatting with Grindelwald. Mr. Grindelwald, today is Christmas Eve, will Nurmengard have extra meals? No, there is only one squibguard in Nurmengard who is responsible for my 3 meals a day. I have been eating the same kind of food for decades, and I am tired of it. So miserable? I heard Azkaban has Christmas benefits. Tom clicked his tongue. Grindelwald's life was really miserable. When he was bored in Azkaban, he could quarrel with his cellmates, pick up soap, and even have the chance to write letters to his family and have people visit him. But Nurmengard just imprisoned Grindelwald. What's the difference between this and a small dark room? Don't ask Tom how he knows so much about Azkaban. Slytherin students have no shortage of relatives who have lived in Azkaban for a long time. Now Tom feels that Azkaban is an inseparable part of Slytherin house. After a while, the food was heated up, and Tom naturally turned the topic to Grindelwald's past. Mr. Grindelwald, the book records very little about the duel between you and the headmaster. There is only one comment, a legendary battle. Can you tell me the details of the battle? /17 I originally thought that Grindelwald would never refuse such a small thing, but Grindelwald really refused. Tom, it's no good for you to know too much now. Andras also agreed. Grindelwald is right. It is not good to know too much. Every powerful wizard has his own style and characteristics. You cannot understand them now. The more you know, the more you will subconsciously learn and imitate, and it is easy to go astray. After hearing what both teachers said, Tom wisely chose not to ask any more questions. Turning on the TV, Tom ate his Christmas Eve dinner while watching TV, listening to the two old men chatting in his mind and commenting on the TV program, which made the show quite lively. After dinner, Tom checked the system and found that Grindelwald's approval of him had increased by 10 points. As long as you reach 20 points, you can draw another talent. The more talents you have, the stronger you will be, and the time to defeat the fire dragon will be advanced. So Tom decided to give it a try. Sitting on the sofa, he suddenly sighed. If I had known that the second teacher would be Mr. Grindelwald, I would not have gone home this holiday. If you stayed in school, you could meet Professor Dumbledore, your old rival. Grindelwald was stunned, and then he became more fond of Tom. Although Tom didn't know the true relationship between him and Dumbledore, he was a good boy to let him meet Dumbledore. System prompt sound: Grindelwald's recognition reaches 20%, and you will be rewarded with a talent extraction opportunity. Talent extraction in progress. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the Heart of Black Magic. Heart of Black Magic. The efficiency of learning black magic increases, the power of black magic increases, and the difficulty of creating black magic decreases. Good, good, good. Hua is smiling so hard that she can't stop. This talent, like a pillow when you feel sleepy, definitely solves his urgent needs. With Grindelwald's teaching, he will soon have the strength to kill a fire dragon. The problem now is where to find a lone fire dragon. But there is no need to rush this matter. He still has a year, so there is no need to be too anxious. He stayed in the living room until 12 o'clock, said Merry Christmas to the two of them, and then went upstairs to sleep. When he woke up the next day, the floor was filled with packages. They were all gifts he received that Christmas. There were nearly 100 packages, big and small, in total. Tom did not start opening the blind boxes immediately. Instead, he sorted the packages first and took out a small notebook with the names of all the Slytherin students on it. Then check the postcards and tick them one by one. The person who sends you a gift may not be your friend, but if he doesn't even send you a gift, it means that he is not even willing to give you a perfunctory response, and this is something you need to pay special attention to. After the recording was completed, Tom began to unpack the package. Most of the gifts are candies, magazines, simple toy models, etc. The symbolic meaning is greater than the value of the gift. Tom does not care what others give him. If Song gives him something, he is a good child. These were also the gifts he sent out. But some people gave gifts that were quite valuable. Sabini sent a brooch inlaid with gems. The gems were cast with magic to have a constant temperature effect. However, in Tom's opinion, this thing can only last for a few months before it loses its effectiveness and only has a decorative effect. But even so, it would still cost dozens of galleons to buy them outside. After all, the materials are very valuable. Advertisement Whatnot gave was a set of wand cleaning tools. Tom had seen this stuff in Ollivander's store. It was more expensive than the wands. He strongly suspected that old Ollivander actually made money from after-sales service. And the gift given by Roger, the biggest fool in the dormitory, was simpler and cruder, but also the one that suited Tom's taste the most, 50 galleons. In addition to them, students from other colleges also sent gifts. Susan Burns gave a book about law and Hannah gave a bag of beef jerky. Tom tasted it and thought it tasted good, but he had a strong taste and thought the saltiness was a little bland. Harry also gave him a gift, a golden scarf embroidered with the image of a Gryffindor lion. No, Gourmand, is this something you would give to a Slytherin? Tom was also drunk. If it was someone else, he would have regarded it as a provocation, but Harry, he didn't have that brain. If he hated someone, there was no way he would give a gift. The twins also gave him a gift, a big egg. And Neville not only gave Tom a memory ball, but also a thank you letter. His grandmother finally agreed to change his wand, and after changing the wand, it was indeed much easier for him to cast spells, but it was still far from what his grandmother required. But that was the limit of Tom's help. He just thought that Neville was unlucky to have a stress-mongering grandmother, which reminded him of those parents who pushed their children too hard in his previous life. Tom continued opening his presents. Snape sent a letter with only one sentence in it: "Let's have another duel after school starts." This is definitely an attempt to deal with him, right? He gave a gift with good intentions, but was threatened in return? This made Tom very sad. What, you asked him what he gave? A book. How to chase the girl you like. The dean is already in his 30s and has no wife, let alone children. And he still has to worry about his student. He didn't even appreciate it. Pursing his lips, Tom threw the letter aside and began to look at the gifts given by Hermione and Daphne. Hermione gave Tom a magic lamp that emits soft light. She also told him to protect his eyes and not become nearsighted. The gift was not expensive, but it made him feel like a little witch. Deep concern. Daphne gave him a mirror. "Look in the mirror and call my name." Seeing the words on the note, Tom did as he was told. "Daphne, Daphne." After shouting twice, the mirror was still glowing, and soon, Daphne's pretty face with a smile appeared in the mirror. "Tom, you finally got up. It's almost 10 o'clock. Isn't this the time to open presents after waking up? I put yours and Hermione's last. This one you gave me is a two-way mirror, right? A two-way mirror is similar to a video phone in the Muggle world, but it is only one-to-one. The mirrors come in sets, and only the person holding the matching mirror can communicate." Tom looked at where Daphne was. It should be her bedroom. It was very large, a suite of over 100 square meters, decorated in a very princess style. The girl is wearing a cute nightgown, and the duck is sitting on the soft carpet. Is this unicorn hair? Tom once again gained a new understanding of green grass's wealth. "Well, we can chat any time with the two-way mirror." The little witch nodded happily, and then asked angrily, "What gift did Hermione give you?" "An eye protection lamp, and told me to protect my eyes and not become nearsighted like Harry." Tom picked up the gift Hermione gave him and showed it to Daphne. "Did you receive my gift?" "Got it, here it is." 11 Daphne held up a not-so-beautiful vest and a glass bottle of red liquid, and said with some fear, "Is this really drinkable? Will I become a vampire?" Advertisement. Chapter 83. Thanks to nature, or to be more precise, it was the gift of the Ream cow that gave Tom a present to give away this Christmas. He soaked the fur of the Ream cattle in special herbal water, further enhancing its defense against magic. Tom did a test and found that when he cast a spell seriously, the clothes could block several stunning spells or petrifying spells. It's just that his craftsmanship is a bit poor, and the products he made don't look very good. But this thing is worn inside the interlayer and not outside, so it is harmless. The blood of the Ruiam cattle can increase strength and improve physical fitness. It is more precious than fur. Tom gave these two things to Hermione and Daphne. Others were eager for it, but Daphne was afraid, and Tom was also at a loss whether to laugh or cry. "How can you possibly become a vampire?" Just think of it as drinking medicine, and it will pass if you endure it. After drinking it, your body will become strong and you will be less likely to get sick in winter. Tom coaxed Daphne like he was coaxing a child. No, this is just coaxing a child. Daphne has caught a cold twice in this semester and is really weak. After hearing Tom's consolation, the girl was not so resistant anymore, but she still had a bitter face. My mother said the same thing, and she also asked me to thank you very much. Both gifts are very precious. Tom waved his hand. What's the relationship between us? Do I need to say thank you? Hehe, that's what I told my mom too. After Tom's coaxing and tricking, Daphne finally drank the blood. Her cute little face wrinkled into a ball, and it was obvious that the taste made her feel uncomfortable. Soon, the fair skin began to turn red, and Daphne was so scared that she screamed. Fortunately, Tom explained to her that this was normal, and she calmed down a little, but she also quickly hung up the two-way mirror. She didn't want Tom to see her in such an ugly state. After hanging up the phone, Tom stretched himself and was about to go out to stretch his body before learning magic from Grindelwald. Grindelwald's existence is very special. After doing an experiment yesterday, he can choose to stay in the study space to rest or return to his body. However, when Tom needs him, his consciousness must come to the study space for tutoring. This is interesting. Even without the previous restrictions, if Tom and Grindelwald fall out one day, they can just call Grindelwald over. Even if he can do two things at once, his strength will be greatly reduced. However, this possibility may not exist. The power of the system is not so great that it cannot even restrict a king of the century. Just as Tom was about to go out, a ball of fire suddenly appeared in the air above the bedroom, and he took out his wand almost without thinking. Before he could make any move, the flames condensed into a fiery red bird, with a package clutched in its 2 feet. This is a phoenix. Chirp. When Phoenix saw that Tom was actually pointing his wand at him, a very human anger flashed in his eyes and he shouted angrily twice. Fox. Tom asked tentatively, his wand half lowered to show that he had no hostility. Shoo. Tom couldn't understand the bird language. Phoenix put the package on the table and stood aside combing her feathers. Grindelwald, Grindelwald. Tom quickly called out Grindelwald through his authority. Grindelwald, who was communicating with Andrus through magic, was stunned. What's wrong? Look at this bird. Is it Fox? Grindelwald observed the outside world and remained silent before nodding. Yes, this is Dumbledore's phoenix, Fox. How did it end up here with you? It should be a Christmas present for me. Tom pointed to the package on the table. Again, I can refuse it, but you can't refuse to give it to me. To the Slytherin students, Tom was the one who received the gifts, but to Dumbledore, he was the one who gave the gifts. But there is also an old saying that goes, when I grow up, I will change. When he becomes powerful, the old man will also give him gifts. This was Tom's previous thought. He thought Dumbledore would not give him a return gift, but he didn't expect him to be so particular. Not only did he return the gift, he also let Fox come over. Advertisement. This was the first time Tom saw Fox. He had not been lucky in previous visits to the principal's office and had not seen Phoenix. Using the Phoenix to deliver express. Only Dumbledore can do such a luxurious thing. In the current wizarding world, in addition to the Phoenix in Dumbledore's hand, there is another Phoenix named Sparks, which is the mascot of a Quidditch team and is worshipped like a master every day. I also want a decent pet. Tom looked at Fox enviously and took out the nettles, dittany, and other herbs he picked from the Forbidden Forest to serve as a snack for Fox. Fox was very satisfied with his meal and began to eat slowly. Tom then started to open the square package, and Grindelwald's attention was completely drawn to it. The package was opened and inside were 3 notebooks. Tom turned to the first page and saw the words left by Dumbledore. This is a backup of the correspondence between Nico and I over the years. I hope it will be helpful to your alchemy. Tom continued to flip through the pages, which were all discussions about alchemy, and were arranged in chronological order. From the first letter in 1905 to the last letter in 1990, the entire notebook was filled. Although the content is fanciful, it is the experience of 2 alchemy masters. As long as you have a solid enough foundation, you can gain a lot from just reading it. In 1905, Tom remembered that Dumbledore was born in 1981, so he was only 25 years old at that time, while Nicholas Flamel was over 500 years old. They were truly close friends regardless of age. Mr. Grindelwald, do you know Nicholas Flamel? Tom suddenly asked in his heart. The corners of Grindelwald's mouth twitched in the space. How could he not recognize him? If that old immortal hadn't existed, Paris would no longer exist in the world. The next scene made Grindelwald's veins jump. Tom put 3 notebooks on a book, which was the Hufflepuff's favorite book, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. Why are you still watching such boring things? Grindelwald finally couldn't stand it anymore and started to slander. What's the difference between this kind of book and fairy tales? There are only a few magical beasts worth noting, and there's no need to waste time understanding the others. Ah, but I think this book is good. It's actually good to read it in your spare time. Tom stroked the cover of the book and exclaimed, Mr. Newt Scamander is really an amazing person. It is he who has given people a systematic understanding of magical animals and truly regarded it as an important subject, isn't it? It's your head. Grindelwald was so furious that he almost exploded. Andras looked at Grindelwald, whose face turned pale and blue, in a strange way, not knowing what was wrong with this guy. Does he hate magical creatures so much? Bored. Grindelwald said angrily, how can you be idle when you haven't even mastered decent dark magic at your age? Don't look at this useless thing, come and learn black magic from me. Dark magic is more interesting than magical beasts. Tom was so happy that he tried hard to suppress the corners of his mouth. I will make you understand the charm of black magic. Grindelwald said this with great arrogance, but he had the capital to do so. Okay, wait a moment, we'll get started. Tom stopped provoking Grindelwald. If he continued, the old man would probably get angry. Fox, how was your meal? Tom looked at Phoenix with a smile. At first glance, the Phoenix in this world is actually quite ugly, but if you look closely, it's actually not that ugly. At least its feathers look extremely shiny, and there's a faint hint of flame flowing through them. Chirp. After eating and drinking, Fox stretched out his long neck, and Tom reached out and stroked it gently. He bared his fangs. Fox, today is Christmas. Your master has given me a gift, and you have eaten the Christmas gift I prepared for you. So now, isn't it time to return the gift? There was even greater doubt in Phoenix's big eyes. I don't want much. Tom smiled more gently than ever before. Give me 2 of your tail feathers and a few tears, and we'll be friends, what do you think? Fox tilted his head. Tom had already taken out the small glass bottle and placed it under the corner of his eye. Facts have proved that even the Phoenix, which possesses extremely high intelligence, is no match for the inherently evil Slytherins, and it was able to escape only after losing a lot of fat and 2 tail feathers. Advertisement, you kid, are such a coward. Grindelwald's mouth twitched, and he got to know Tom again. He is completely different from the good student he was yesterday, and now he is full of bad intentions. But it's better this way. He would be uncomfortable if he cultivated another Dumbledore-like character. Asterisk. Please excuse me, Mr. Grindelwald. Tom sighed in self-pity. Children from poor families have to grow up early, let alone an orphan like me. I can only live frugally. Grindelwald said calmly, as long as you have magic, all the accessories will come to you like a tide. Remember, Tom, magic is power. In the study space, perhaps to prove what he just said, black magic is more interesting than magical beasts, or perhaps to prove himself in front of his peers, Grindelwald's salary increase is his trump card. A king of the ancient century and a king of the modern century, how could he not lose face? If you want to kill the fire dragon once and for all, then limiting its flying advantage is a problem that needs to be solved urgently. Only by making it stay on the ground and fight with you can you kill it. This is the black magic I created, the hand of hell. Boom. The flat ground suddenly opened up, and 2 energy hands wrapped in blue flames emerged from the cracks, clenched their fists tightly, and then exploded with a bang. Tom's eyes lit up. Coach, I want to learn some moves. Suddenly, Grindelwald smiled. Your headmaster is a rare master of transfiguration. I have fought with him many times. Among the large creatures he transformed into was a fire dragon. This spell of mine is to restrain his transfiguration. He waved his hand, and the blue flames in the sky were attracted and gathered towards him, condensing into a fireball the size of a basketball. There are more advanced applications later, but that will have to wait until you master this magic. The first thing you need to learn is the fiery spell. When I say learn, I don't mean you can set fire, but you need to use your own magic power to suppress the fiery spell and control the spread of the fire. Magic that cannot be controlled by wizards is garbage, and those who use this kind of magic are even more useless. Tom suddenly thought of Goyle, who seemed to be burned by his own fierce fire. Deadly. The first step is the fire curse. This is the difference between white magic and black magic. White magic requires gradual progress. Black magic is whatever you want to learn. The first step is the 3 unforgivable. You can use either the forgiveness curse or the curse. However, even if you learn how to deal with a dragon, it is useless. The dragon's vitality is not comparable to that of a wizard. The professor's killing curses cannot kill the dragon directly. At most, they can make it weak. Weak nosebleed. It still requires fierce fire and direct lethal black magic to be effective. With the existence of the black magic heart, Tom's learning speed is very fast, even surpassing the learning speed of other magics, which makes Andrus a little suspicious. Is Tom a natural-born blacksmith? Andrus was also learning along. In his time, there was no fiend fire spell, so he could only release a small flame, but Tom could already skillfully release a large amount of fiend fire. Control its spread in one direction. What follows is more delicate operation, condensing it into shape, raising the temperature, until finally, like Grindelwald, he treats the fiend fire as a plaything. In the next few days, Tom stayed at home and studied with Grindelwald, and his credits were consumed at an alarming rate. He had to activate the extraordinary state twice a day. Fortunately, he had enough stock before, enough for him to spend in a short period of time. In addition, black magic was an area that Tom rarely touched. Ye can bring a lot of colleges. The outside world, whether it is the magical world or the world of ordinary people, is undergoing a drastic change. Suddenly, there were more than a dozen more countries in the world, and dozens of countries suddenly lost their big brother. There are many more national governments in the Muggle world, and there are also many more ministries of magic in the magical world. On the last day of 1991, Tom finally went out. He came to Michael's residence in Nocturne Alley and found a message from Borgin Borgin. Without further ado, Tom went straight to Borgin and Burke's shop. Old Burke had just seen off a guest who was wearing a hood and had covered his entire face with magic. His face was so wrinkled from smiling. "It looks like a good deal, old Burke," Tom joked. Bach didn't care about Tom's teasing. "Today is not only my lucky day, but also your lucky day." Tom looked at him puzzledly, and suddenly an idea flashed in his mind. "Did you get the dragon's heart?" "Well, it's a piece of news about the heart of the fire dragon. The price is 300 galleons. Bach smiled like a profiteer. Advertisement. Chapter 84. A message, selling a light wheel for 2,000. Tom took out the money without hesitation. Strength is the most important thing, money is nothing. The smile on Bach's face grew brighter, and he quickly put the galleon away. If such a generous client were replaced by someone else with no background and no strength, Bach would have already thought of robbing his fellow criminals. But until now he still hadn't figured out Michael's background, and the purebloods he knew didn't match the style of the man in front of him. It's like a wizard popping out from between a rock, or, coming from another country. But at least until he is completely sure of what he has done, he will just be a businessman who charges a high price but is absolutely honest. "Sir, you should know what happened in the north, right?" Bach did not rush to tell the information, but asked back. Tom nodded. There are more ministries of magic being established these days than in decades past. He subscribed to the international edition of the Daily Prophet, and the Ministry of Magic's founding announcement alone took up several pages every day. Bach lowered his voice and said mysteriously, "Because of the change in regime, management problems have arisen in many places. For example, in the dragon farm in Romania, 2 fire dragons escaped from there. Both of them were tree peaks, the most ferocious kind." Tom's breathing quickened slightly. "What's the matter?" Bach rolled his eyes and said, "This guest is really funny. The dead didn't run away, they were carried out." "Where?" Tom asked directly, not wanting to waste any more time talking to him. "This is absolutely the best news. As long as the fire dragon is found, not only can Jukazan get the materials, but he will also have the opportunity to complete the trial. One of them is missing, and the other is in the Vosges." Tom frowned and thought, and soon figured out where he was talking about, the border between France and Germany. "That's right." Bach nodded and said, "It's been very chaotic there recently. Some exiled wizards from the north and hyenas that came here to smell the scent have gathered there. Now there are a lot of poachers too." "How many people did you sell this news to?" Tom asked again. Bach looked at him with pretended dissatisfaction. Would old Bok do such a thing? 2 days ago, when I received the message, the first person I thought of was you, and I never told anyone else. However, if you don't reply to me within 5 days, then I will have to find another buyer. I can guarantee that no more than 5 wizards in the whole of Britain know about this, and none of them have any idea about dragons. Tom heard the hidden meaning, but other countries can't guarantee it. Bok shrugged, there is no such thing as a secret. Besides, we all got it this way, so naturally others can too. If customers have ideas for fire dragons, we will quickly raise people to do the animation. They are always ready. Tom said this and strode out of the store. Borgin and Burke rubbed their chins. It seems that he is not the Lone Ranger. This is really more interesting. Tom quickly bought a plane ticket to Lorraine, France using Michael's identity. In fact, a visa is still required to travel from the UK to France, but with the existence of the confusion spell, Tom saved a lot of trouble and arrived at his destination, Epinal, that evening. Speaking of the Vosges Mountains and the Vosges Forest, many people may be confused. But the German part of this forest across the Rhine is the famous Black Forest. The population nearby is sparse, with less than 1 million people in the entire province, but there are quite a few wizards and magical animals, and there are a large number of magical animal populations in the forest. Tom rested in the city for a night and waited until tomorrow to look for the wizard gathering place in the forest. Are you sure it's okay for me to use my wand here? While studying in the study room at night, Tom looked at Grindelwald suspiciously. If you calculate the straight line distance, the distance from here to London is about the same as the distance from London to Hogwarts. Will the tracking thread become ineffective? Grindelwald smiled and said, thread is just a British tracking method. It will be ineffective outside the borders. Advertisement: no country wants the Ministry of Magic of other countries to extend its hands to their territory. Just use it with confidence. Once you are proficient in the confusion spell, you won't have to go through so much trouble in the future. Grindelwald gave Tom a way to use his magic to cast spells outside of school, which was to use the confusion charm to make the traces on the wand mistakenly believe that the owner of the wand was over 17 years old, and the surveillance would naturally be lifted. Unfortunately, Tom has only learned how to use the confusion spell and has not yet mastered it to a very high level. Therefore, he will not be able to use it during this holiday. The next day, Tom found the division gathering place in the Vosges Mountains based on the secret code between the troops. The Vosges Mountains have a special status in France. They are rich in resources, with magical animals, herbs, and rare metal mines. In addition, there are fairy tribes, dwarf tribes, and Vila tribes in the mountains, which attracted many wizards to come and pan for gold, and gradually formed a stronghold. The center of the stronghold is a huge square. All the buildings are within 2 kilometers of the square. Almost every few houses is a tavern or hotel, and there are quite a few people inside. Tom randomly picked a hotel that looked clean and checked in, then went to the busiest bar in the area and started asking for news. As for how to find out, it's still the same old trick, fishing. He generously ordered a bunch of the most expensive drinks and food in the store, then pretended to be drunk and left the pub. Immediately, 4 people followed him secretly, 2 of them were in a group, and the other 2 were lone rangers. Tom didn't let any of them go. He caught them all, gave each of them a sip of truth serum, and then began to torture them. Apart from what was introduced in the books, he knew nothing about the Vosges Mountains. Even the map was just bought, so Tom first asked a lot of basic common sense questions, and then began to inquire about the news of the fire dragon. The news of the fire dragon had spread, and even they, a group of low-level Lu merchants, had heard that a fire dragon had come to the Vosges Mountains. However, not many people are interested in the fire dragon. One reason is that this fire dragon is registered and belongs to a dragon farm in Romania, which is under the jurisdiction of magic departments of multiple countries. Ordinary wizards dare not cause such a big trouble. The second reason is that he cannot defeat the fire dragon. The fire dragon is too dangerous and can easily cause death. So even though he is jealous of the body full of treasures, he does not want to lose his life for it. This is just the idea of most wizards. In the past few days, professional poachers have appeared in groups. The information of these 4 people alone is enough to gather 7 teams. So, Tom has quite a few competitors. However, the Vosges Mountains are so large that it is not easy to find a fire dragon that can fly all over the sky. Tom achieved his goal, and without caring about the 4 people, he returned to the hotel and entered the study space to learn academic strategies. There are 2 experienced guys here, and you would be a fool not to take advantage of them. School will start in about 10 days. I must find the fire dragon as soon as possible, otherwise I will have to find an excuse to ask for leave. Andras didn't care whether Tom asked for leave or not, and he seriously helped him think of a solution. Grindelwald frowned. If you take a leave, won't I be able to see Dumbledore later? He quickly thought of a black magic that was very suitable for the current situation. The bloody tracking spell can be used to find the place where the smell of blood is the strongest. Fire dragons eat a lot, so there must be a lot of food residue in their nests. Tom blinked. Teach me. In one night, Tom had mastered the spell completely. The sensing range was very large, about 5 kilometers. With his increasingly skilled apparition skills, Tom began to search for the traces of the fire dragon in 10 circles, centered on the base. Soon, another 2 days passed. The bad news is that Tom got nothing. The good news is that there was no news of the fire dragon being discovered, so no one succeeded. The most urgent person now is not Tom, but Grindelwald. If we delay any further, he will really need to take leave. On the third day, Tom met a group of people. No, to be precise, it's a group of people and a group of Vila. More than a dozen human wizards were hunting down 8 Vila. At this moment, the Vila were no longer the charming ones, but had turned into bird-like beings with hideous faces and red hair. The flying Vilas kept throwing fireballs at the wizards, seemingly occupying the air advantage, but the wizards were very smart. Several wizards jointly released the armor spell to stop all the fireballs. The others fired spells into the sky without any scruples. Some members of the Vila party were already injured and were caught by their companions and flown in the sky. This weakened the firepower a lot. Advertisement. What attracted Tom's attention was not the group of hideous-looking Vila, but the only beautiful silver-haired girl in their camp. She looked about 13 or 14 years old and already had the potential to charm everyone. Half Vila. Tom guessed the identity of the silver-haired girl, and without hesitation, he apparat to the edge of the battlefield and roared. Stop! Let go of these Vila and let me take over. Both sides were frightened by this troublemaker. One of the human wizards with a scar on his face said impatiently, if you don't want to die, get out of here. This is our prey. Answer me a question first, and then I'll consider whether to leave. Tom looked at him seriously and said. What's the problem? The scar-faced wizard asked subconsciously. Do you know where the dragon is? Fire dragon. Scarface laughed crazily as if he had heard some big joke. You dare to covet the fire dragon alone? If I knew, I would really tell you, and then see how you die in the fire dragon's mouth. It seems you don't know. Tom sighed and waved his wand. Hand of hell. Boom! The fire of hell gushed out, and under the horrified gazes of the wizards and the Vila, a giant hand formed by silver flames emerged from the ground and clenched its fist towards the wizards standing together. The armor spell that blocked countless Vila fireballs was shattered in an instant with a rapid crackling sound. The palms closed together, and more than half of the wizards did not escape, and turned into ashes with screams. No. The scarred wizard luckily escaped the disaster. He looked at the sea of fire with bloodshot eyes, and then ruthlessly shot a green fluorescent light at Tom. Avada Kedavra! Tom quickly turned sideways, easily dodging the spell, and pointed his wand at the scar-faced wizard. Break into pieces! Blood and flesh splattered everywhere, and the fierce fire fell like a meteor according to Tom's will, hitting the surviving wizards. After more than 10 seconds, 10 more survivors were killed. Tom nodded in satisfaction. He was very happy with his learning results these days. The nearly 1,000 credits were not wasted. He had fully mastered the fiery fire curse and the various derivative uses created by Grindelwald. Even if he were placed in Paris back then, he would be able to burn a lot of things. The forest was so quiet that only the crackling sound of the fire burning the air could be heard. They didn't dare to breathe, nor did they dare to act rashly. There were still several balls of fire floating in the sky, blocking their retreat. Come down and talk. Tom nodded to them. But you 5.3 need to calm down. I'm afraid I won't be able to resist taking action now that I'm in such a state of honor. Afraid that these Vilas wouldn't understand English, Tom switched to speaking French. Sure enough, some of the Vila still looked at her in fear and horror, but 2 of them understood and made sharp and strange sounds. All the Vila slowly landed on the ground, but they were still. Tom kept a certain distance and protected the silver-haired girl at the back. In order to show his sincerity, Tom also sucked the fierce fire into his hands, and was wrapped in golden light and disappeared into thin air. Dear human warrior, thank you for your help. A Vila said in French with a strange accent, but her appearance remained unchanged. Tom was just forcing others to do what he wanted, just like a cat with its fur standing on end. The bird-like form of the villa was also a way for them to protect themselves and was affected by their emotions. We are not out of danger yet, so it is impossible for us to relax. Tom could only look at these sharp-toothed monsters and continue, you heard me just now. I'm here to find the fire dragon. I'm not interested in anything else. At least I saved you, so I'll repay you for your kindness. If you help me find the fire dragon, I'll have repaid you. The villa who knew French translated Tom's meaning to the other villa. For a moment, they looked at each other, not knowing how to respond. The fire dragon is not easy to deal with, and the human wizard in front of it is not easy to deal with either. If they don't agree, they may not be able to leave here. Hibiscus. At this moment, there was new movement in the forest, and another group of bird-shaped villa flew over from a distance. Advertisement. Chapter 85. Grandmother. Hearing the anxious cry, the protected Furong finally woke up from her previous state of shock and also shouted towards the sky. There were dozens of new villa. The leading one landed in front of the girl, while the others surrounded Tom with bared teeth. Tom frowned slightly. The villa in charge of communicating with Tom hurriedly began to explain the situation through villa language, and the hostility gradually disappeared, but he still remained vigilant. Thank you for saving my granddaughter. The villa made way for a passage, and a beautiful villa came out. She had silver hair like hibiscus, and her skin was white and smooth, as clear and bright as moonlight. She exuded a strange charm that made people's thinking become dull. Tom was operating a clemency and was not affected at all. I am Polana, leader of the Villa tribe. Polana bowed slightly, thanks to your presence, otherwise they really might not be able to stop the reinforcements from reaching the bed. Hello, Ms. Polana. You can call me Michael. You should know my conditions. Tom said softly, I wonder if you are willing to help me with this. No problem. Polana agreed straightforwardly and patted Furong's head lovingly, you saved my treasure. I will mobilize all the Villa and Villa's allies to help you find the fire dragon. Tom breathed a sigh of relief. With the help of the local bosses, things finally feel a lot easier. Polana extended an invitation, Mr. Michael, please stay in the tribe until you find the fire dragon. My tribe members are quite reluctant to stay in places where humans gather. There are too many people with ulterior motives there. Sorry to bother you then. Tom agreed. He was also quite curious about the Villa tribe. The crisis was completely resolved, and the emotions of the Villa stabilized. They turned into beautiful women, each with long wavy silver hair and plump legs. Even in the absence of wind, their hair fluttered gently. Tom was very happy now. He was surrounded by dozens of stunning beauties and felt like he was back in his dream at Shanghai. No, Shanghai doesn't have this quality. The Villa were all smiling at Tom, and with their peach blossom eyes, they looked affectionate. But Tom had just seen the true face of the Villa and was completely indifferent. Mr. Michael. A soft voice came, and Furong came to his side without knowing when. My name is Fleur Delacour, thank you for saving me. She is a half-Villa, and she is French. She is the only one who meets the age requirement, which is one of the reasons why Tom chose to take action. Miss Delacour, it's wrong for you to thank me like this because it lacks sincerity. Tom suddenly said seriously. Furong blinked blankly, what does it mean to be sincere? It should be like this. Tom cleared his throat, if your savior is good-looking, you should say that I have nothing to repay you with but my body. If your lifesaver is ugly, you should say that if I were reincarnated, I would repay your kindness by working like a slave. Now you know what to say, don't you? Tom winked at Fleur. Furong suddenly realized and said tentatively, then. I will be your slave in the next life. Tom puff. Tom was speechless. The Villa who could understand human language laughed so hard that they fell backwards, while those who didn't understand looked at them in confusion. Even the leader Polana had a smile on her face, as if she had thought of something, and her smile became even gentler. Then, Avila translated the conversation between the two people. Now, except for Fleur and Tom, everyone else laughed, and the pleasant sound of silver bells echoed in the forest. Tom is very depressed. The Michael he turned into is really ugly. Suddenly, Avila screamed, attracting everyone's attention, and they all looked over. The effect of the polyjuice potion expired, and Tom turned back to his original appearance in front of everyone, and his magic clothes also became smaller. You used polyjuice potion. Furong's eyes widened, and she quickly guessed the reason and said in surprise. Advertisement. Tom sighed, when you go out, you give yourself an identity. If you don't become more mature, it will be troublesome to do anything. Polana was also surprised. Mr. Michael, is this your true appearance? Call me Riddle, Tom Riddle. His disguise was exposed, and Tom was too lazy to use a pseudonym anymore. Vila are friendly to humans, but they don't care about laws or worry about revealing their secrets. Even if it gets leaked, it's no big deal. This is France and the British can't reach out. Riddle, how old are you? Fleur asked the question that concerned her most. Tom looked shorter than her. 11 and a half. Furong felt her worldview collapse. 11 years old, isn't that the age for formal schooling? A young wizard of this age just killed several wizards with a spell. Several adults were wiped out by him in just 1 minute. And, she's so pretty. Tom looked at Fleur with interest. Delacour, I'll give you another chance now. Will you choose to be my slave or to give yourself to me? Furong stared at Tom's face in a daze, and soon a blush crept up her cheeks. Also, can I reselect? An hour later, Tom and his party arrived at the tribe of the Vila. This is a valley that looks no different from a human village, with houses neatly arranged against the cliff. Polana arranged a single-family house for Tom to rest for a while, and took the injured tribesman to receive treatment. Tom had just finished visiting all the rooms and chosen his own bedroom when there was a knock at the door. When I opened the door, I saw Furong standing there pretty much, and there was also a smaller Furong. Didn't we just separate? Why are you here again? Tom said something to Furong casually. His eyes were always on little Furong. Little Furong also opened her eyes wide, looking at Tom fearlessly. Her eyes were full of clearness of curiosity. What do you mean? Furong was a little nervous. She was full of curiosity about the mystery of Tom and wanted to get to know the boy better. However, when she came over, she was greeted with a tone of disgust. He just said that he wanted her to pledge herself to him, but now he turns around and refuses to recognize her. Scumbag. What made Fleur even more unacceptable was that Tom paid more attention to Gabrielle than her. Apart from a casual glance at her while talking, the BD was always looking at her sister. In Beaux Batons, she is the center of attention. Why is she different when it comes to Tom? Big brother, I'm Gabrielle. Little Furong spoke softly. Tom smiled unconsciously and squatted down to be level with the little girl. Hello Gabrielle, I'm Tom Riddle, how old am I this year? Gabrielle is 6 years old this year, the little girl answered very energetically. Great. Tom gave a thumbs up. He's 6 years old, that's amazing. Children don't care why you praise them, as long as you praise them they will be happy. Gabrielle's eyes narrowed with a smile, and she also told them the purpose of their coming. Sister said that it was Big Brother who saved her, and Gabrielle came to thank him. I see. Tom made a look of sudden enlightenment, then Gabrielle knows the right way. Riddle. Before Tom could finish his words, Furong interrupted him hastily. How can you use the same trick twice? Gabrielle is still a child, come to her if anything happens. She can bear it. Are you just going to let us talk outside the door? Furong changed the subject. She couldn't let this scumbag continue to fool her sister. Tom shrugged indifferently, stood up, and stretched out his hand naturally. Gabrielle also naturally put her little hand into Tom's hand and let him lead her into the house. Fleur gritted her teeth again when she saw this. Advertisement. The three of them came to the living room, and Gabrielle sat down next to Tom obediently. Unlike other naughty kids of her age, she was very quiet. My grandmother is busy treating the injured. She asked me to come and see what you are missing so that I can prepare it for you. Furong asked. Tom shook his head. I have everything I need with me. I have everything I need, but food is a problem. What do Vila usually eat? Furong gave an awkward but polite smile. Vila prefers magical berries and flowers. At the end of this valley is a plantation, which may not be suitable for human consumption. Drinking dew and eating flowers and plants, it really sounds a bit like the fairies and elves in the legend. If they couldn't transform, it would be even more like them. And what are you and Gabrielle going to eat? Asked Tom. I'll be in charge of cooking, so just eat something simple. I didn't realize you could cook. Then make me one, just make sure it's not poisonous enough to kill me. Tom was not polite at all, and arranged everything for Furong without hesitation. The girl rolled her eyes and said, Don't look down on me, okay? Gabrielle said the food I cooked was delicious. Furong didn't notice that the little girl secretly curled her lips. My sister's authority is here, how dare she say it's not delicious? Although Fleur was unhappy that Tom looked down on her, she did not refuse the request to cook. The girl held the hair by her ear and asked casually, Riddle, you are 11 years old this year. Logically, you should be enrolled in school. Then why haven't I seen you in Beaux Batons? I'm from Old London, not French, and of course I go to school at Hogwarts. Tom felt there was nothing to hide, so he said directly. You are British. Furong was surprised, then how come you speak French so fluently without an accent? Learning multiple languages is a good path. You can learn them when you are bored. Furong once again had a new understanding of the boy's evilness. So you came to the Vosges Mountains just to find the fire dragon? Tom said as if it was a matter of course, well, I'll come over. Why is Big Brother looking for the fire dragon? Gabrielle asked curiously, blinking her big eyes. Tom suddenly frowned, this is a trial task of Hogwarts. If students want to successfully advance to the second grade, they must defeat the dragon to prove their strength. How can there be such a perverted school and rules? Fleur was so angry that she laughed at Tom's serious look. If that was true, there wouldn't be many graduates from Hogwarts in the past 100 years. What made her even more amusing was that Gabrielle actually believed Tom's lies, ran to her with a look of horror on her face, and threw herself into her arms. Sister, Hogwarts is so scary. Gabrielle, don't go to Hogwarts. Fleur glared at Tom in reproach, hugged her sister and consoled her. Gabrielle is going to Beaux Batons, just like her sister. It's the best magic school in the world. Why would she go to Hogwarts? She now had one more label for Tom. I like cute little girls, talking nonsense, turning my head away, a scumbag of a man. Fleur said Beaux Batons was the best magic school in the world, and Tom did not refute it. This didn't mean he agreed, he just didn't want to argue with Fleur, but the current Hogwarts was no longer worthy of the best title, at least after turning the defense against the dark arts professor into a passerby. Hogwarts is not eligible until the issue of consumables is resolved. Gabrielle felt more stable after hearing her sister's comfort. She poked her head out and said to Tom, Brother, Hogwarts is too bad. Why don't you come to Beaux Batons to study? Well, then I can see Gabrielle every day next year. You live in Beaux Batons? Tom asked in surprise. It's preschool education. Furong explained, after the age of 7, eligible wizards can come to school to receive preschool education, learn to read and write, and some basic common sense. Tom exclaimed, that's really good. Unlike Hogwarts, even purebloods can only study on their own before entering school. It is definitely not as convenient as the unified management of the school. This is the initiative of Madame Maxime. Oh, by the way, you don't know her. Madame Maxime is the principal of our school. When talking about Maxim, Furong's eyes were full of admiration. The three chatted for a while, and Gabrielle's eyelids began to droop. It looked like she wanted to take a nap, so Furong took her away. Tom also went upstairs to rest for a while, until night fell. Furong came again, this time to ask him to have dinner. Advertisement. Chapter 87. After receiving the news, Tom didn't stop for a moment. He thanked Polana and immediately used apparition to set off. Hey, Tom, you. Before Furong could finish her words, Tom disappeared without a trace. The angry girl pounded the ground twice. Are you in such a hurry? You should be well prepared even if you want to go. Polana looked at her granddaughter with a face full of anxiety and worry. She might have thought that she was asking her to challenge the dragon. How could she not understand Fla's special feelings for Tom? This is actually normal. Saving a life is the most difficult favor to repay, and this has become a tradition of their lineage. Didn't she follow that old guy because he saved her life? I didn't expect to have a similar experience with Furong. The only difference was that the old guy was really ugly. Furong and Tom, they were a perfect match. Fleur. Polana suddenly called softly. Grandmother. You should trust Tom. Polana stroked the girl's silver hair. To maintain a long-term relationship, trust is the most important foundation. Since Tom dared to plan the fire dragon, it means he must have his own confidence. Men don't like others to question them. Even if it is out of good intentions, too much concern will make people bored. Do you understand? The girl seemed to understand what she heard, but she nodded anyway and kept Polana's words in mind. The other side. After several consecutive apparitions, Tom crossed the Rhine and stopped in the territory of the Black Forest to relieve the dizziness caused by continuous apparitions. There are two ways to use apparition. One is to know the destination, try to build a clear picture of the destination in your mind, and then break through the space with determination to arrive. The other option is to go to some place you have never been to, such as teleporting 20 kilometers to the east. The second option is more difficult and requires more magic power and mental strength. The range will also be narrowed, but the restrictions are smaller. Tom now belongs to the second situation. He has never been to this area before and is just following the instructions given by Kong Bona. The reason why he was so anxious was because of a piece of news revealed by Lapona. The goblin was found on the way to trade with a group of wizards, which means that this place 270 should not be far from the trading location, which is in the city on the German border. If we don't hurry up, something serious might happen if someone comes over. However, Tom did not rush to the fire dragon in a hurry. After finding the 2 mountains that Lapona mentioned, he first ate a roast chicken and a dozen strips of bacon, then walked around and made sure there was no trace of the wizard. Then he came to the valley between the 2 mountains. The rubbish spell that Grindelwald gave him finally came in handy. There was a bloody place nearby. Tom followed the path and finally saw the fire dragon he had dreamed of, the Hungarian tree peak. The bronze scales were densely packed, like the plate armor of a medieval knight, covering the 50-foot-long body. There were also sharp barbs on the back that flashed with cold light, extending from the tail to the head. As the most ferocious species among fire dragons, the Hungarian tree peak is not the largest fire dragon, but it is definitely the most powerful fire dragon. It is extremely powerful and, like a hedgehog, has weapons all over its body. Tom took a deep breath and lifted the disillusionment spell when he was 100 meters away from the fire dragon. If it gets closer, the fire dragon will be able to smell the breath of life on him. In fact, he wanted to launch a direct sneak attack, but he was afraid that it would not be recognized by the rules of the 12 trials, so he chose the most conservative way. The Hungarian treetop that was resting suddenly opened its eyes, looked at Tom with its yellow-brown vertical pupils, and roared. Roar! The dragon roared loudly, but Tom's face was full of joy. In his sea of consciousness, a linear character representing a dragon emerged, shining with golden light and emitting wild power. The dragon trial begins. After receiving the accurate information, Tom finally felt relieved. Being by his side was a curse. The damage is 0, and the insult is maximum. The Hungarian treetop roared even more angrily. The dragon roar just now was to warn the human that this was his territory. In the end, this human not only did not appreciate it, but also madly provoked him. Hungarian tree peak was furious, and the hot dragon breath spurted out of his mouth. Advertisement: the man and the dragon were 100 meters apart. It took 2 seconds for the fireball to fly over. Tom easily predicted the landing point and dodged it, then shot out another spell. The Hungarian treetop suddenly jumped up to avoid the spell, spread its wings and flew into the air, but the height was not very high, only about 10 meters from the ground, and then swooped down towards Tom, spewing dragon breath from its mouth again. This time it was not a fireball, but a continuous tongue of fire, 10 meters long. Iron armor protection. Transparent ripples appeared in front of Tom. He did not launch an attack, but retreated vigilantly. As the Hungarian tree peaks got closer and closer, the temperature in the air was rising rapidly. The magic shield of the iron armor spell was fully revealed, blocking the astonishing heat. 50 meters. 40 meters. 30 meters. 20 meters. The time is now. The boy's eyes suddenly gleamed with brilliance, and he raised his wand violently. Hand of Hell. A familiar scene reappeared, the ground cracked, and 2 energy palms made of blazing fire appeared under the fully spread wings of the Hungarian tree peak. At this time, the Hungarian tree peak was almost flying close to the ground. There was no time or room for reaction at all, and the devil's fire had already grasped his 2 wings. Roar! The Hungarian treetop roared, but this time the roar was no longer filled with anger, but rather excruciating pain. After casting the spell, Tom stopped controlling fiend fire and quickly activated apparition. His figure flashed and he appeared behind the Hungarian tree peak. The fire dragon weighed more than 10 tons, and coupled with the acceleration, the Hungarian tree peak, which could not control itself, crashed into the mountain wall like a huge cannonball. The entire mountain seemed to tremble a few times, and large pieces of fallen rocks fell from the cliff. Everything was going according to the script set by Tom and Grindelwald. The fire dragon's wings are usually in a retracted state, and the wrinkled skin's defense will be greatly increased. If you want to destroy its flying ability with one blow, you must first let the fire dragon fly. Attack after launching the double section. Just as Tom was feeling happy, a sudden warning sign appeared, and he quickly strengthened the defense of the armor spell. The huge rocks that were piled up and buried the Hungarian tree peaks were shaken away, and some of them fell towards Tom. To pieces! To pieces! Tom quickly cast a spell, blasting all the rocks into pieces. The tragic scene of the Hungarian tree peak also appeared before his eyes. Its wings had been completely burned through, and it tore them off like a hero, leaving only its bare front paws. Its brown eyes were full of bloodshot, and its thick tail swept violently, attacking Tom at an astonishing speed. A huge steel shield was placed between Tom and tail. Even the half-meter thick steel could not withstand the huge force. It was deformed after the collision, but it also slowed down the speed of the attack, allowing Tom to dodge it with ease. At the same time, he shot 2 eye disease spells at the eyes of the Hungarian tree peak. The eyes are the weakest part of the fire dragon's body. After being hit, Hungarian tree peak not only felt extremely painful, but also became blind, and began to randomly attack the surrounding areas with dragon breath and body. In just a few seconds, corrosive sulfuric acid. Tom retreated a certain distance again, and pungent acid spurted out from his wand, gathering in the sky and raining sulfuric acid. The burning of fierce fire and the corrosiveness of acid rain, even a fire dragon with thick skin and flesh cannot withstand such torture. About 2 minutes later, the roar and wailing of the Hungarian tree peaks reached a peak, but the breath on their bodies became weaker and weaker, and their movements became sluggish. Tom dispersed the fierce fire and acid rain again. If this continues, the fire dragon's flesh and skin will be gone. At this point the outcome was already determined. It seemed simple. Tom was unharmed and had the Hungarian tree peak at his fingertips, but in fact the key lay in the terrifying power of the fierce fire and acid rain. With only these 2 spells, it would be difficult to burn the wings, or even hurt the fire dragon's internal organs through its thick scales. Tom waited for the opportunity, and when the dragon's belly was exposed, another black magic was shot out. Advertisement: rip out your stomach. Tear. A big gash appeared on the fire dragon's belly, blood gushed out, and its internal organs and intestines fell to the ground. Blood and flesh fell to the ground, making a sizzling sound of corrosion. Unprocessed dragon blood is highly toxic. Tom's heart suddenly began to beat fast. Damn it! The difficulty of this dragon trial is not in slaying the dragon, but in bathing in dragon blood, right? The Hungarian tree peak's struggle became weaker and weaker, and Tom stopped attacking, quietly waiting for his vitality to dissipate. As a large amount of blood was lost, the bronze skin of the Hungarian tree peak became dull, and all the blood that flowed was collected by Tom. 5 minutes later, the Hungarian tree peak was completely dead. Tom received feedback from the 12 trials. The dragon slaying mission has been completed. As long as he bathes in dragon blood, his trial will be completely completed. Tom gritted his teeth, took off his clothes, and exposed himself in the wild in the cold winter, controlling the dragon blood to pour onto his body. The thick red blood poured over his body like magma. As soon as it touched his body, it felt like it was on fire. It was so hot that he almost cried out. The golden dragon pattern in his mind shone brightly and exploded with a loud bang. Tom felt his magic power begin to run wild, and the power in the dragon blood was trying hard to drill into it. The 2 sides began to fight with his body as the battlefield. At the beginning, they were evenly matched, and Tom was in great pain, but the power of the dragon blood was constantly weakened. His magic power was blessed by the dragon pattern and became more and more courageous. He began to devour the most primitive dragon energy hidden deep in the dragon blood. Tom's magic power began to grow rapidly, and the pressure that was almost materialized spread to the surroundings, and cracks appeared on the ground one after another. At the same time, his bones crackled like frying beans. In just a few seconds, Tom's height jumped up to over 1.6 meters. Faint dragon scale patterns appeared on his body, but soon disappeared. Blood fusion does not mean that Tom will have the blood of a dragon in the future, but it means that he will integrate the advantages of the fire dragon and make it his own, evolving towards a more perfect state. A minute later, the commotion subsided and everything returned to normal. Tom opened his eyes and instantly felt that the world was different. Well, his eyesight has improved. At the same time, his body was filled with a sense of power. The originally illusory magic power began to become substantial. He could feel the magic power flowing in his body, but he could not find it specifically. It was a mysterious feeling between existence and non-existence. I've grown taller and thinner, which is a manifestation of more condensed muscles. At this time, Tom really wanted to use the spell that failed to summon the bison with the levitation spell to get a bison and try whether he could kill a bull with one punch. But after thinking about it, I decided to forget it. The most urgent thing at this time is to clean myself up. There is a battlefield. The dragon blood residue had already formed a thick scab on his body. He used the clean water spell to summon a spring to clean himself. Tom put on his clothes again and began to collect the remaining blood from the dragon. Materials. Most of the skin of the Hungarian tree was burned and corroded, and it had a strong smell of black magic, so it was completely scrapped. Tom could only cut off these parts to avoid infection. His intact flesh and blood. The dragon's heart, liver and other key parts need to be soaked in special culture fluid to keep them active, and Tom had already prepared it. After some trouble, Tom packed up all the valuables, and without staying for too long, he used apparition to leave the valley. It was not until 2 days later that someone found this place. Looking at the discarded dragon skin, flesh, and blood, the poachers could only sigh to the sky. I got there first. Back to the present, Tom's speed on the way back was much faster. The previous limit of the blind vision apparition was only 20 kilometers, but now this number has doubled. After several times of apparition back to the Vila tribe, he did not feel any motion sickness and was still full of energy. Furong did not leave Tom's house after he left, and kept pacing back and forth anxiously. The sound of the apparition snap rang out, and she reacted almost instantly, rushing over to hug the boy, her voice ringing in Tom's "You're finally back." Tom was surprised that Furong was so worried about him. After realizing what was happening, he gently patted the girl on the back and said with a smile, "Do you have some confidence in me? Not only did I come back, I also slayed the dragon successfully." Advertisement. Chapter 88. Boom. Under Furong's odd gaze, the huge fire dragon corpse fell to the ground, almost filling the entire backyard. Even if it was a dead fire dragon, it still carried a faint dragon aura. Wizards might not be sensitive to this kind of pressure, but Furong was a half-Vila with a quarter of magical animal bloodline, so her reaction would be stronger than others. Hearing the noise, Lapona also rushed over quickly and looked at the fire dragon's corpse on the ground in horror. He actually succeeded. In many Western myths, dragon slayers are absolutely great heroes and are endowed with all kinds of legendary colors. For example, Siegfried, Beowulf, and Saint George in Germanic legends, and Lancelot and Saint Martha in English and French legends. In fact, one of them is a wizard, and he has truly accomplished the feat of slaying a dragon. But has there ever been a wizard like Tom who achieved the feat of slaying a dragon at the age of 11 in the history of the wizarding world? Looking at the young man who was telling Furong about the process of slaying the dragon, Lapona was in a trance. This might be the greatest opportunity for their Vila tribe in 100 years. If Furong and Tom were together, they would have the blessing of a dragon slayer, and this dragon slayer would surely become even stronger. Even though the French Ministry of Magic and the tribe have a good relationship, they are just using the relationship, and there are many factions within the Ministry of Magic. There are also people who are eyeing the wealth of their tribe and even the Vila themselves. However, the situation is relatively stable now, and with the restraint of other factions, the tribe is relatively safe. But once the balance is broken, then force is needed to make others speak reasonably and calmly. In addition, Furong acted so blatantly that it couldn't be considered that she was selling her granddaughter. Lapona smiled knowingly and quietly left the back garden, leaving the space to the two young people. The two of them huddled together tightly. After bathing in the dragon's blood, Tom's height was now the same as Furong, who was 3 years older than him, and they looked much more compatible. "I used the same magic I used to save you that day, but fire dragons are really hard to deal with. A wizard can burn one to death in a few seconds, but a fire dragon can still be alive and kicking after being roasted for several minutes. Is that fiend fire? But the book says that fiend fire cannot be controlled, and only a few spells can counter it. This shows that the person who wrote the book is not as good as me, and even less good than the person who taught me, so they felt that the fire in the house was out of control." "Hey, you just know how to brag. How can this be called bragging? If I could write a book, it would definitely be better than those authors." "Then go ahead and write it." Furong's pretty face was full of bright smiles, and she said provocatively, "I will definitely be the first to buy it when you finish writing it." Forget it. Tom shook his head. I'm afraid that if I write it, others won't be able to afford it. The method of controlling fiend fire alone can drive countless dark wizards crazy. The knowledge of both Grindelwald and Andrus is priceless. Tom must abide by the principle that the truth should not be passed on lightly. Only those who are recognized by him and have trading value to him can obtain this precious resource. Furong did not mock Tom this time. She felt that Tom's aura had changed after he killed the fire dragon. He became sharp and powerful. Compared with those silly boys in school who show off themselves like peacocks spreading their tails, he is like heaven and earth. Half an hour later, Furong felt that Tom must be very tired after the battle, so she told him to have a good rest and left the cabin. But after integrating the blood of the fire dragon, Tom became extremely energetic and did not feel tired at all. He sank his consciousness into his mind, observing the changes in the 12 trial talents. The dragon-shaped characters have completely disappeared, replaced by a vast starry sky. In the starry sky there are 12 palaces, 11 of which are dim and only the first one is shining brightly. In Greek mythology, 12 is the carrier of sacred numbers, and constellations are the product of myths projected onto the starry sky. Even Hercules left his eternal memory, the constellation Hercules, in the starry sky. The zodiac in Tom's mind represents the progress of his trials. His mental power was projected onto the second dim palace, and soon, the second task information of the 12 trials was transmitted by the palace. Second trial, Holy, please gain the recognition and following of a unicorn. Reward, obtain the blessing of the sacred beast, purify the soul, and improve understanding. The first trial strengthens the body and magic power, and the second trial strengthens the soul and understanding, both are very good rewards. But, isn't this a bit too much to ask? Advertisement only LSP knows LSP best. What is a unicorn? In mythology, it is a symbol of purity and holiness. In reality, it also has sacred attributes and is very effective against black magic, but just because it is only allowed to be touched by pure girls, Tom has put it on his list of enemies. He tried to communicate with the second palace, asking if they could change the task requirements, asking him to kill a few unicorns to gain recognition, etc. Isn't this asking too much? Is it to make him dress as a woman? Do you want to borrow some clothes from Furong? Unable to think of any good solution, Tom decided to go to the study space to ask the two old masters. But as soon as he came in, before he could say anything, Andrus and Grindelwald both noticed Tom's changes. Blood fusion. Grindelwald frowned. Tom, have you found the dragon? Yet. Tom nodded and didn't hide anything. I just killed that tree peak and took a dragon blood bath and the fusion was successful. Andrus and Grindelwald looked at each other. If blood fusion was really as simple as Tom said, there wouldn't be so many deaths among wizards who tried, and so few who succeeded. However, the two did not ask further questions, as there was no point in asking these questions. They just understood why Tom was determined to slay the dragon with his own hands. It seemed that there was a huge benefit waiting for him. Andrus smiled and looked at Grindelwald. It seems that the intensity of future training can be increased. With the fusion of the fire dragon bloodline, we can train for 2 more hours. Grindelwald nodded in agreement. With such good conditions, if we don't work hard, when will we be able to defeat Dumbledore? Mr. Andrus, from now on, it will be 8 hours a day. 4 hours for you and 4 hours for me. Black and white magic must go hand in hand to develop in a balanced way. Good idea. These days, the relationship between Andrus and Grindelwald was unexpectedly good. Tom was originally worried that there would be conflicts between the two due to their incompatible personalities, but it turned out that he was overthinking it. Andrus is an extremely upright wizard, with the word upright written all over him, but that doesn't mean he is a pedantic person. In the Dark Ages of Greece, pedantic and sanctimonious webmasters would not have a good end. Andrus's justice is a kind of enlightenment. He will not bully the weak, nor will he be afraid of the powerful. All truths must be expressed with fists and magic wand. The patron saint is powerful because of his strong will and extraordinary talent, and has nothing to do with kindness. It fits the saying very well, my heart and my behavior are as clear as a mirror, and everything I do is just. Grindelwald is not a dark wizard in the traditional sense. Although he has done many unscrupulous things, his ideal is for wizards to rule the world and no longer be rats hiding from muggles. You can say he is paranoid, but you can't say he is purely evil. For Andrus, this kind of thinking was actually quite consistent with the status quo of his time. Wizards were all nobles of the country and guests of honor in the court. So the two of them actually get along quite well. You two, the problem with the fire dragon has been solved. I now have a new problem. Tom expressed his need to be recognized and followed by the unicorn, to see what good solution the two older generations could come up with. Grindelwald asked tentatively, so as long as you succeed, you can obtain the power of the unicorn's bloodline again. Tom shook his head, and the two old men breathed a sigh of relief. The blood of the fire dragon is certainly enviable, but they are also people who have seen and eaten it. For the level of the king of the century, a blood talent is actually nothing. But one more and they would all be jealous. It will not fuse blood, but it will purify the soul and improve its essence. Puff. Andras snorted, and Grindelwald's eyes twitched wildly. Do you want to hear what you're saying? The essence of the soul. Advertisement, please give me flowers. If the essence of a wizard's life is 1 and the essence of his soul is 1, then after fully tapping his potential, the strength he unleashes should be 1*1 equals 1. This shows that this wizard is a human. Of course, not everyone can have a basic value of 1. Some may be higher at 1.2, and some may be lower at 0.8. The essential improvement means that the number 1 in front has changed. The strengthening potion that Andras gave Tom was a strategic treasure that could enhance the essence of life. This was not a potion formula he created himself, but a formula created by another powerful wizard. The masterpiece of the prophet Psos. Mopsus was a figure 200 years earlier than Andras. He was the strongest person in the kingdom at that time, a well-deserved king of the century. He possessed powerful prophetic abilities and defeated another prophet Colchis, helping the kingdom to its peak. Unfortunately, he got involved in the royal succession, was secretly plotted against and poisoned, and died in a very miserable way. But before he died, he issued the most vicious curse to the royal family: you will die at the hands of your own son, and your son will marry your biological mother. In mythology, this is the famous Oedipus curse of the Theban royal family. The curse was passed down for 3 generations and directly caused the outbreak of the Trojan War. After taking a round of potions, Tom's life essence was about 1.5, an increase of 50%, and the fusion of the fire dragon bloodline made this number increase again, and now it is at least 3. However, these are all improvements to the life essence, and there is no change in the soul. But now Tom can even improve his soul essence. Even if it is slightly improved by 0.1, the overall increase will be much stronger than a single 0.1 increase in life essence. This is the charm of the multiplier. Tom looked at the two old men expectantly, hoping that they would give some constructive suggestions. Grindelwald thought for a moment and said, "How about using the Imperious Curse? I have a unique skill in casting the Imperious Curse. I can kill the unicorn first and then resurrect it to achieve the perfect state." Tom's face darkened. "Stop joking. Do you think I don't know your dark history of killing Kylan and fooling the International Confederation of Wizards? What I want is the recognition and following of the unicorn, not the unicorn puppet." Grindelwald's face also turned dark. "Don't hit someone in the face, don't expose someone's shortcomings when you scold them." Tom not only exposed their shortcomings and hit them in the face, but also exposed their shortcomings and hearts. The conspiracy of the Kirin election was exposed, but this was not a big problem for Grindelwald. It was just that the follow-up handling was more troublesome and he could not be careless. Most what Grindelwald couldn't accept was that the one who ruined his plans was Newt's commander, the man who ran around the world with a stinky box. Moreover, at the last moment, he destroyed the Blood Alliance, completely freed the restrained Dumbledore and turned against him. Damn it, Scamander is a disaster, a huge disaster. After scolding one away, Tom's last hope was only Andras. Andras also thought of a solution at this time: beat him. If he doesn't obey after 1 beating, then beat him twice. If he doesn't obey after 2 beatings, then beat him 3 times. If he doesn't obey, then he deserves to be beaten. One day, the unicorn will get it. Tom was in utter despair. A Dark Lord and a thief. How can we improve the magic world with this bunch of bugs? Unable to think of a solution for the time being, Tom practiced with the two of them in turn, feeling the sudden increase in strength. An hour later, Yuliang returned to his original form. The progress is obvious, the power of spells has been significantly improved, and all spells have their own power. This is why among so many 5x level magical creatures, only the fire dragon is the most representative, because other animals are just dangerous, but the fire dragon is not only dangerous, but also carries the upper pressure. The dragon's might is suppressed. Any sub-dragon creature that has anything to do with dragons is at least 4x level. Now Tom has also acquired the coercive attribute. Some weak-willed wizards can become uneasy and unable to concentrate before they even start fighting him. The power of the curse will also be greatly reduced. Putting the matter of the unicorn aside for the moment, Tom plans to go back to school to look up more relevant information before making any plans. Putting on gloves and using transfiguration to create a set of sharp knives, Tom began to deal with the dragon's body. Advertisement. Chapter 89. Dealing with the fire dragon's corpse is not only a delicate job, but also a huge project. With a body that is more than 10 meters long placed here, it would take a lot of time just to remove the scales, skin, flesh, and bones. Later, the materials need to be classified and organized. Furong originally wanted to help, but when she saw the bloody corpse, she became weak all over and her help turned into hindrance. Tom quickly asked her to leave so as not to delay his main work. The angry half-Vila felt that Tom looked down upon her, so she began to do logistical work, trying to prepare delicious food for Tom every day, and even brought a group of Vila to give a full-body massage to Tom who was exhausted after a day of work. Tom was tired but happy, immersed in the land of gentleness every day. He couldn't rest at night either. The two kings of the century took turns training him, and his progress was much faster than before. Originally, Tom planned to hide from Snape for a while when school started, so that he would forget about the Christmas presents before jumping out. Now? Should I avoid him? Come on, face it head on. 3 days later. The fire dragon's corpse was finally dealt with, and in his spare time he finished boiling the fishy body potion. With the experience from the first time, I was much more familiar with the process this time and no problems occurred. Now only 1/5 of the fire dragon's heart has been used, but the Sphinx's eyeballs have been used up. A total of 20 bottles have been produced. Tom drank a bottle of experimental medicine, and the result was as he expected. There was an improvement, but the improvement was much weaker than before. He has already merged the blood of the fire dragon, so the effect of using this magic potion will naturally be greatly reduced. As long as it is useful, he will continue to use it. No matter how small a mosquito leg is, it is still meat. He couldn't use up all the 20 bottles, so he thought of Furong. I sold a bottle to Furong at the price of 1,100 galleons. The first bottle can be tried first and paid for later. It is impossible to give it away for free. There is only one person who is qualified for Tom to give away the strengthening potion for free, and that is Daphne. The girl's unreserved help from the beginning weighed heavily in Tom's heart. Although there are some signs of love between him and Furong now, their relationship is not yet at that level, so he can't just give her away for free. What's more, the fact that he was willing to sell this kind of thing to Furong was in itself a proof of their closeness. If it were Malfoy, even if it was 10,000, well, if he was really willing to give 10,000, only a fool would not sell it. Furong came to visit her grandmother, so of course she couldn't bring so much money with her. She was still confused as to what was so special about this potion that it could be sold for 1,000 galleons. A small bottle of Felixir only cost a few hundred galleons. Lapona didn't know what it was, but she paid for Furong without hesitation. Now, even if Tom took out a bunch of weeds and sold them for 1,000 galleons, she would not hesitate. After taking the potion and following Tom's instructions, Fleur immediately realized that she had made a fortune. There are very few things in the magic world that can directly increase strength. Most of them are external objects such as alchemical props. After digesting a bottle of magic potion, she can clearly feel the changes in her body. Full of energy, clear thinking, and full of magic. Anything else? Furong looked at the boy with fiery eyes, as if she wanted to eat him up. I'll take all of it, no matter how much you have. Tom thought for a moment and said, I'll give you 4 bottles at most. He had to leave some of the remaining strengthening potion for Daphne and Hermione, but he hadn't decided what to exchange for Hermione yet. As for himself, it was estimated that after just a few bottles, the effect was completely gone. 5 bottles are not enough, Tom, just give me some more. Hibiscus' eyes looked pitiful and she started to act coquettishly. A cute and lovely girl hugged your arm and shook you, with a pitiful expression on her face as if she was about to cry. Really not many people can resist it. But Tom was different. After so many days of training in the Vila tribe, his faith had already been solidified, and he would not agree to anything. Advertisement in desperation, Furong could only use her killer move. What about Gabrielle? Don't you want to prepare a few bottles for Gabrielle? Recently, Gabrielle and Tom have been getting along very well, because when Tom is around, her sister won't scold him, and Tom is very patient with her. The little girl didn't go home to sleep for a few days, and stayed with Tom as a pillow, which made Lapona a little hesitant. Did she choose the wrong target, and should wait until this year for Bree to go? Sure enough, Tom hesitated, but finally shook his head. It's not that I don't want to give it to Gabrielle, but she is too young now. It won't be too late to use it when she goes to school. I'm running low on stock, and I'm missing a very important ingredient. If you can get the eye of a sphinx, send it to Hogwarts, and I'll make you a pot of it. Seeing what Tom said, Furong could only give up helplessly, and at the same time she felt very angry. No matter how she acted like a spoiled child, it was useless. She hesitated when Gabrielle was mentioned. She even had to explain so much to her. Tom didn't know that Fleur was jealous of her own sister. He took out 4 bottles of potion, handed them to the girl and said, "Don't be impatient and use them all at once. If you want to fully utilize the effect of the potion, it's best to use 1 bottle a month. Also, don't be careless with the supporting actions, which will help you absorb it faster. Everyone has different physiques. There's nothing wrong with him taking 1 bottle a week, but Furong's foundation is a little weak, so it won't make any difference if he takes it slower." But the girl heard something different in his words, and her mood suddenly became much lower. "Are you leaving?" "Yes, one of them goes to school at Beauxbatons and the other goes to Hogwarts. It's just a vacation now, we will have to separate eventually." Tom nodded and admitted, this trip ended perfectly. School will start the day after tomorrow, so it's just right to go back tomorrow. "Can you stay 1 more day?" Furong suddenly grabbed the boy's hand, her eyes sparkling. "Mom and Dad will come tomorrow, they want to thank you in person." "That's not necessary." Tom was a little embarrassed. Furong pleaded in her eyes, "You can apparate, so it won't be too late even if you leave that morning. Just stay for another day. Don't be busy tomorrow. Just stay with me and Gabrielle." Tom finally agreed. He had successfully used the confusion charm to eliminate all traces of his wand, so he could cast spells without restraint outside the school. It would be no problem for him to arrive at London's King's Cross station before 10 o'clock in the morning. The next day, Tom gave himself a complete day off and did not even use the free 1-hour study space. When he got up in the morning, he accompanied Gabriel to play with magic blocks. The two of them built a castle, which was solidified by Tom's solidification spell, so it would not fall apart even if they moved it home. At noon, Furong's parents arrived. "Mr. Riddle, thank you for saving my daughter. If anything happened to Fleur, I really don't know what I would do." As soon as he came in, Mr. Delacour excitedly pulled Tom's hair. Mr. Delacour was a middle-aged man in his 40s, bald, less than 1.80 meters tall, and a little fat. He looked like a standard passerby NPC who could easily hit a few people if you threw a stone on the street. Mr. Delacour also explained why it took so long for him to come here. He was the head of the Emergency Response Department of the French Ministry of Magic. He was busy all day and night during Christmas, dealing with hundreds of disputes, most of which were related to homeless people from the north. "Related? I came here today to ask for leave, but I have to go back to work overtime in the evening." Tom suddenly understood why he was bald, and was also glad that Fleur and Gabrielle did not inherit their father's looks, but perfectly inherited their mother's advantages. Lady Delacour is a completely Fleur Pro version, more mature, and looks like she is in her early teens at the age of 40. Furong Pro, Furong, and Furong Mini, when the 3 of them are fighting together, no one would believe that they are not from the same family. Lady Delacour expressed her gratitude, but she focused more on Tom, looking him over and over several times, and the more she looked, the more satisfied she became. Lapona has expressed her thoughts in the letter, so now only Mr. Delacour is kept in the dark. Mrs. Delacour already looks at her son-in-law with the eyes of a mother-in-law. Tom spent the whole afternoon chatting with the Delacours. Mr. Delacour talked to him about the international situation and recent cases, while Mrs. Delacour was more concerned about Tom's personal situation. When they learned that Tom was a Muggle orphan, Mr. Delacour remained silent, while the 3 women felt a sudden pain in their hearts. Emma Wrong's big eyes quickly filled with tears. During this period of time, Tom had never mentioned his family. With his strength, she subconsciously thought that Tom came from a family with a deep foundation. But who could have imagined this would be the case? Advertisement. How much hardship must a person have endured to come to the wizarding world from the Muggle world and achieve his current success in more than half a year? Thinking of this, Furong's tears fell like pearls from a broken string. She wanted to rush over and hug Tom, but someone was faster than her. Gabrielle was already sobbing in Tom's arms. "Big brother, I will be your family from now on." Tom didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Why did he feel like these people had already made up a sad drama in their minds? He really thought it was nothing and it was good to be alone. The Christmas holidays were over, the whistle blew, and the Hogwarts Express, carrying the young wizard, left from platform 9 3/4 and headed for the Scottish Highlands. The box was pushed open and a head poked in. After seeing that only Daphne was in the box, Hermione walked in and asked impatiently, "Daphne, have you seen Tom?" "No." Daphne said angrily, "I promised you yesterday that I would definitely catch the train today. I searched all the compartments and didn't see a single shadow of you. Don't you have a two-way mirror? Contact him quickly." Hermione also realized the seriousness of the matter and her tone became anxious. Daphne rolled her eyes. "You don't even need to tell me. I've tried many times, but Tom still hasn't responded. Nothing will happen, right?" Hermione became more and more worried the more she thought about it. At this moment, Daphne was calmer than Hermione. "Don't overthink it. Tom is much better than you and me. If anything happens to you, nothing will happen to him. Even if there is a problem, he still has a wand in his hand. He will definitely be able to handle it." Hermione could only nod helplessly. Both of them were very quiet throughout the rest of the journey. They would occasionally speak a few words, but would soon fall silent. Daphne tried to use the two-way mirror to contact, but there was still no response from the mirror. When she was about to get off the car, Daphne tried again. Finally, the two-way mirror was connected. The girl jumped off her seat and said, "Tom, where are you?" He hurried over. "I'm on the night business." Tom on the other side of the mirror said, "I encountered some troubles, but I solved them. I may be late to school. I'll talk to you later." "Yeah." Daphne nodded repeatedly, disconnected the call on her own initiative, and smiled at Hermione. "Just make sure Tom is safe and sound. As for what happened in between, we can tell you slowly when we get to school." The two of them got off the train briskly and followed the troops rode in a carriage to Hogwarts. There was heavy snow in the sky, and the carriage slowed down, leaving two deep ruts on the path. 0.3 until the castle platform. Stop at the bottom of the stairs. The students couldn't wait to jump off the train, rubbing their hands together and running towards the castle. The weather was so cold and there was no insulation in the carriage, so people were shivering with cold. Fortunately, the fire in the castle was burning brightly, and I felt warm when I came in. There was no complicated opening ceremony. The auditorium was already filled with sumptuous dishes and the students couldn't wait to sit down and start enjoying them. Slytherin has already noticed something wrong. Tom isn't here? When Bertz and others asked Daphne, who had the best relationship with Tom, the only response they got was a wave of the hand. "I don't know where Tom is, but he told me he'll be here soon." Sitting at the guest of honor table, Dumbledore was watching the bustling scene of eating. This was the happiest time of the year for him. Watching the children gather together to enjoy the food was more enjoyable than any magic. It's tempting to him. If it were anyone else, he might not have noticed. But for people like Tom and Harry who are the focus of attention, it is not difficult not to notice. He turned a questioning look at Snape. Snape was looking for someone just like him, and when he noticed Dumbledore looking at him, he frowned and shook his head slightly. How would he know where Riddle had gone? Could it be that he had received his Christmas threat and was afraid to come over? When most of the food on the plates had been eaten and the dinner was about to end, the oak door slowly opened with a heavy creaking sound. Countless people looked towards the door, and Tom walked in despite the snowstorm. Advertisement. Chapter 90. As if the dishes on the table were playing a joke on Tom, he hurriedly sat down next to Daphne, not caring about the leftovers, just wanting to have a full meal. As soon as his butt touched the bench, all the food on the table disappeared, and the golden plates became as bright and shiny as new again. Puff. I don't know who laughed first, but then many people in Slytherin laughed too. Although normally few people dared to laugh at Tom, that was obviously not the case now, because they really couldn't help it. Especially Tom's changing expressions, which make people feel funny. Even Dumbledore, who was sitting at the guest of honor table, couldn't help but smile. Okay, kids, the sumptuous dinner is over. Go back to your lounge and enjoy the warm fire. Don't forget to go to class on time tomorrow. Mr. Riddle, please stay for a moment. I have something to ask you. After Dumbledore finished speaking, students and teachers began to leave one after another. At Dumbledore's signal, Tom came to the guest of honor seat and followed him into a small room at the back. Snape, Tom's head of house, also followed in. Tom silently opened the study space and called out Grindelwald. Dumbledore looked at Tom. Tom looked at Dumbledore. Grindelwald looked at Dumbledore. In the space, Grindelwald had a complicated expression, but the corners of his mouth were raised unnaturally. He didn't know what his mood was at the moment because it was too confusing. In the end, all the emotions turned into one sentence. Albus, you are so old. Andrus looked at Grindelwald, who was filled with emotion, and felt a little confused. Aren't these two rivals? Why does this encounter feel like a soap opera that Tom is watching? Or maybe the hero and heroine met the right person at the wrong time, the kind of encounter that happened after decades of separation. Mr. Riddle. Dumbledore's voice was gentle, with a faint smile on his lips. I heard from Hagrid that you didn't seem to appear in the carriage team, which means that you didn't take the Hogwarts Express. 17 Can you tell me what happened? Maybe I can provide some help. Tom shrugged helplessly. Professor, today is really terrible. The train to London was delayed. When I arrived at the platform, it was already past 12 o'clock. Then how did you get to school? Snape asked in a serious tone. I saw the method of summoning the night bus in a book and tried it. I didn't expect it to really come, but the ticket price is a bit expensive. Parker charged me 2 galleons. I see. Dumbledore nodded slightly, then smiled and said, if you encounter this kind of situation in the future, you can ask Fawkes for help. Don't you have his tail feathers in your hand? Light a feather and she will feel your call. Snape cast a sharp gaze at Tom, filled with disbelief. Phoenix feathers? No, I have been begging this old man and the dead bird for many years, but I haven't received a single phoenix feather, let alone a tail feather. How long have you been here and you've already got it? Do you understand what first come, first served means? Tom ignored Snape, whose eyes were red. He smiled and nodded at Dumbledore, then I'll ask Fawkes for help next time. Wrong. Dumbledore corrected, try not to be late next time. In any case, the Hogwarts Express is the safest and most comfortable way. Okay, Professor. I'll pay attention next time. Dumbledore nodded with satisfaction, thinking that this Tom was much more obedient than the previous one. However, if he knew what Tom was doing during the holiday, he probably wouldn't think so. Not counting dragons, Tom killed no less than 30 poachers and wizards. Voldemort killed more people in one semester than Tom did in his first year, no, in his entire student life. Okay, Mr. Riddle, you must be very tired after the bumpy ride. Go back and rest. Advertisement. Let's talk for a while, let's talk for a while. Grindelwald sent out signals frantically, but Tom ignored him and left the office after saying goodbye. What happened to the phoenix's tail feathers? Snape asked as soon as Tom left, just like an innocent girl who had been cheated of her relationship by a scumbag for many years. Dumbledore shrugged helplessly. This is a matter between Fawkes and Mr. Riddle. It has nothing to do with me. Fawkes helped me deliver a Christmas present to Mr. Riddle, and gave his tail feathers and tears as a gift to Mr. Riddle. Doesn't that make sense? And tears? Snape was already breathing heavily. Serve. Dumbledore suddenly looked serious. You should have noticed the change in Mr. Riddle, right? Snape was in no mood to think about tail feather tears for the time being. His expression became serious as he gave his own evaluation, showing his edge and overwhelming his momentum. It seems that Riddle did something remarkable during this holiday, otherwise there wouldn't be such a big change. Dumbledore smiled gently, it's a good thing for students to make progress. I just want to make sure that these changes in Mr. Riddle have no negative impact on him. I will test it. Snape was determined to duel with Tom again. Maybe he felt the gap between them and used some shady means. It's not that he dislikes black magic, but one should not rush into anything. He is making rapid progress now, but when he reaches the watershed, he will realize how stupid he was before. Isn't he the best example? Even though he was now one of the top people in the wizarding world, below Dumbledore and Voldemort, the gap between the two was so huge that it made him despair. Thank you for your help, Sev. Dumbledore nodded with a smile and left the office. Snape didn't react until the person disappeared. This old guy fooled him again. They were talking about Phoenix. Why did they bring it to Tom? Back in the lounge, Tom was immediately taken to a corner by Daphne. The little witch lowered her voice and asked, "Tom, what happened today?" The boy sighed, leaned back on the sofa, and silently cast a soundproofing spell to ensure that no one else could hear their conversation. "What's going on?" "But..." Then Tom told Daphne about his experience of the day. At 6 o'clock in the morning, Tom did not disturb Fleur and Gabrielle. He just said hello to Lapona and left the Vila tribe. He began to apparate towards London. There was no problem at the beginning, but when he reached the border between England and France, he actually touched the anti-apparition array. It turns out that there have always been strict restrictions on the unbridled entry and exit of wizards between Britain and the European continent, and they must register. The isolation power of the anti-apparition array is not that strong, it is more of a warning. After the alarm was triggered, 4 wizards in striker uniforms immediately appeared. Fortunately, Tom was quick-witted and conjured a black hood to cover himself, thus not exposing his identity and figure. It was impossible to explain. If his identity was exposed, he would have to spend the night in Azkaban, so Tom decided to slip away decisively. Several wizards who came over were stunned, and immediately followed the spatial fluctuations to chase after it. They were here to register people, but they ran away without even saying hello. There must be something fishy going on. So began a game of chase that went all the way around Britain. At first, Tom had gotten rid of the guys, but these strikers had no moral principles and called 4 other teammates to chase and intercept them. In the end, Tom lost his patience and set a trap to launch a surprise attack, quickly knocking down the 8 strikers who were chasing him, without giving them a chance to call for help. This is how to get out of trouble. But it was already 2 o'clock in the afternoon and the express trains had disappeared, so he could only call a night bus to rush to Hogwarts. Daphne opened her mouth slightly, shocked by Tom's rich experience that day. Advertisement: she was almost going to go to Azkaban to see Tom, and she didn't know if her mother could get him out. "It's good that you didn't get caught." The little witch had already held Tom's hand and comforted him. "Try to go abroad in a safe way in the future." After that, she said angrily, "It's all that half-blood Vila's fault. If she hadn't kept you here for a day, you wouldn't have encountered this." Even when Tom was in the Vila tribe, he did not lose contact with Daphne, so Daphne knew his recent itinerary and experiences, and also knew about Furong's existence. However, the two-sided mirror could only show one person at a time, so Daphne had never seen Fla's face. But her identity as a half-blood Vila was enough to make her hostile. The reputation of Vila in the Western world is on the same level as that of Vixen in the East. It's only a matter of time. Tom smiled helplessly. "Even if I come back a day earlier, I actually plan to apparate back, but I will still be discovered." He really didn't expect that the Muggle policy of glorious isolation would actually affect the wizarding world. Now that the European continent is trying to integrate, Britain is still building high walls here. After talking to Daphne for a while, Tom slipped out of the lounge and went to the kitchen to have dinner. He didn't even know that because of his actions today, the entire Ministry of Magic had been thrown into chaos. Although the 8 strikers were not in danger of death and only suffered minor injuries, a powerful wizard with unknown origins suddenly broke into Britain. What exactly did he want to do? Did he have any accomplices? The Ministry of Magic was completely in the dark about these issues, and the 8 strikers couldn't even see the people's faces clearly. That night, all the Aurors and strikers were called into work overtime, searching wizard strongholds one by one. Nocturne Alley became the worst hit area, and the manhunt inexplicably turned into a crackdown on organized crime. It wasn't until Tom saw the Daily Prophet the next day that he realized he had gotten into so much trouble. "Beware of strange wizards, danger lurks around us." This is the headline on the front page. The Daily Prophet calls it a premeditated invasion. The number of invaders and their appearance are currently unknown. The only thing we know is that the invaders are very strong. Wizards are requested to report to the Ministry of Magic immediately if they see any strange people. Daphne was also numb after reading the newspaper. She looked at the bewildered Tom and burst out laughing. When Tom saw her smile, he also smiled, which made the people around him feel puzzled. But he didn't dare to ask and continued to discuss the mysterious man who suddenly appeared with his classmates. Before the Transfiguration class, Daphne told Hermione everything, and was speechless after listening. The Ministry of Magic made such a fuss just because of Tom. She lowered her voice, afraid of being heard by others. "It's not Tom, it's the mysterious intruder." Daphne also emphasized in a low voice, This matter has nothing to do with Tom. Hermione nodded repeatedly, agreeing with Daphne's statement that this matter must not be known to a fourth person, otherwise it would likely bring great trouble to Tom. Then she looked at the boy in a flattering manner. Tom, can you use the confusion charm on my wand, too? I can't practice magic this holiday. Hermione was almost driven crazy. When she learned that Tom had such a useful little trick, she couldn't sit still. Tom looked at Hermione teasingly. Isn't this the most disciplined Miss Granger? So, you are only following the school rules and the law doesn't matter, right? Oh, what are you doing? Hermione blushed with embarrassment, while Daphne beside her chuckled at her good sister. Hermione pinched Tom's arm without using much force, and said angrily, "Don't bring up my dark history anymore." Now Hermione has gradually come to understand that all the rules are dead, and there are even many unreasonable rules, so why should we follow them? For example, the rule prohibiting night outings is too extreme. As long as she doesn't miss classes the next day, going out for a walk can be beneficial to her physical and mental health. So now Hermione feels that her previous self was too rigid and completely stupid. Tom stopped teasing her. If she got angry, he would have to comfort her himself, which would not be worth it. So he readily agreed to Hermione's request and helped her solve the problem of trace after class. At this time, Professor McGonagall walked in from outside, holding 2 cages with owls in their hands. The classroom instantly became silent, and Hermione quickly returned to Lavender Brown's side. Professor McGonagall walked up to the podium, glanced at the whole class with dignity, and said solemnly, "Everyone, put your homework for this holiday on your desk. Don't tell me you forgot to bring it. I can send an owl to your house to pick it up right now." Advertisement. Chapter 91. The students took out their homework obediently, and even Longbottom did not forget to do so. His luggage was packed by his grandmother, so there was no possibility of missing anything. Only Tom was like being struck by lightning, and did not move for a long time. Professor McGonagall collected the homework all the way to his desk, looked at the empty desk and asked curiously, "Mr. Riddle, where's your homework?" "Professor McGonagall." Tom forced a smile. "I haven't recovered from my vacation yet. How about you give me 2 more days to fully recover before handing the assignment to you?" He had completely forgotten that in order to make Hermione less burdened during the holidays, he took the initiative to ask to do the holiday homework himself. As a result, after going to France, I saw the Vila girls every day. Who would remember the damn homework? Not only Transfiguration, he didn't touch any other subjects. This time, he deserves what he got. I haven't done my homework for almost a semester and I've lost the habit of it. Professor McGonagall responded with a kind smile, "Thank you, Mr. Riddle, for giving me a brand new excuse. What are the consequences if the best student in the grade doesn't do his homework?" Tom didn't know about other subjects, but at least everyone was equal in Transfiguration. As expected, Tom was punished by Professor McGonagall, who deducted 5 points from Slytherin and ordered him to hand in his homework tomorrow. If he was 1 day late, he would lose 5 more points. In fact, this is still a show of mercy, and the character of a good child has worked. If it were Ronald or Malfoy, they would not only be deducted points and have to pay back the penalties, but also be given detention. No, these 2, and Harry, were already in detention for fighting on the last day of last term. Tom admitted his mistake honestly, which calmed Professor McGonagall down a lot, and today's teaching began. Students have to turn stones into wooden pipes with beautiful patterns. As the most difficult course in the school, after 1 semester, the young wizards still haven't mastered the art of transfiguration and can always create a bunch of strange things. Dean Thomas turned his stone into an elephant's trunk and walked around everywhere, causing a burst of screams. Neville turned a stone into another stone? Except for some changes in appearance, the material has not changed at all. Professor McGonagall shook her head and hurried to see Tom and Hermione's results, which made her feel a little better. Otherwise, an experienced teacher who has worked diligently for decades will begin to doubt his or her own teaching level. After class, Tom found a corner and helped Hermione solve the wand problem. Then he hurriedly found Professor Flitwick and explained the situation. Compared to Professor McGonagall's strictness, Professor Flitwick was much more relaxed. He didn't deduct points and didn't require Tom to make up his homework. He just needed him to manipulate the ribbon on the table to do a tap dance, and he would pass. This little test certainly did not pose any difficulty for Tom, and he passed the professor's test smoothly. Then it was the herbology class. Professor Sprout was very understanding and asked Tom to accompany her to fertilize a group of pitcher plants and didn't mention the homework anymore. The remaining subjects are not important. Cuthbert Binns cannot distinguish the notes, so just find a few classmates and have each person copy a section. Quirrell, he doesn't deserve to have Tom do his homework. The most difficult one is probably Snape. At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, Tom knocked on Snape's office door. Come in. A low and cold voice came from inside. Tom pushed the door open and walked in. Snape was not surprised to see that it was Tom. Apart from the professors and Filch, Tom was the only student in the school who dared to come to his office. Professor, I didn't do my potions homework. Detention. Snape said without looking up. No, it's a waste of time. Let's change the punishment. Then help me deal with the toad's body. Disgusting. Bang. Snape closed the book, looked up at him coldly, and said, You're still picking. Advertisement after that, he sneered again, if you don't want to accept the punishment, you can come to the Quidditch field at midnight, and you are not allowed to use your disgusting door panel, no problem. Tom agreed so quickly that Snape was caught off guard. Before he could react, Tom had already run away. It took Tom one night to finish his transfiguration homework. To be precise, Andrus wrote it once in the space, and then Tom copied it out, made some minor modifications, and that was it. It's not that he doesn't want to write it himself, but the homework assigned by Professor McGonagall is quite huge, and it will take at least a day to finish it if he works hard on it. Tom won't waste time on this, so Andrus will have to suffer. The King of the Century actually helped first-year students cheat on their homework. Grindelwald wanted to laugh but didn't dare to, fearing that Andrus would give up and Tom would come after him next time. After finishing copying the last essay on the topic just in time, Tom rushed out of the lounge, found his way out of the castle, and came to the Quidditch field. Snape was standing alone on the grass. When he saw Tom appear, he raised his wand without any nonsense. Tom was not so anxious. He prepared in advance, Professor, we have agreed that no matter what the result is, the issue of holiday homework will be over. Snape gave a teasing smile, No, Riddle, but you can't use those weird things. Don't worry, I won't even use a transfiguration spell this time. The smile on Snape's face disappeared and turned into ice again. In the last duel, Tom's transfiguration caused him a lot of trouble. After a holiday, this kid wants to turn against Tien Gang? Snape sensed the change in Tom's aura, but he still didn't think that he could have undergone such a drastic change in just a dozen days. He just thought that the boy was getting too proud. It was just right for him to cool down Tom and make him understand that there are always people better than you. Snape raised his hand slightly, and a spell was fired, starting the duel. Tom dodged the spell leisurely, and a burst of hot red light shot out in response, ripples appeared, and the armor charm blocked the spell, but Snape was shocked by the huge impact force carried by the spell and took a few steps back. After standing still, he looked at Tom in surprise. It's clearly just a common repelling spell, how come it's so much more powerful than before? Professor, you're just letting it go after not seeing each other for a holiday. You can't do this. The boy's teasing voice came over, followed by several spells. Each spell was fierce, disarming spell, stunning spell, obstacle spell. These basic spells actually carried a domineering meaning. For a moment Snape was completely at a disadvantage and could only barely resolve Tom's offensive. At this moment, Tom really wanted to shout out the wise saying 30 years on the east side of the river, but it was only more than half a month later, so it was a bit inappropriate to shout it out. On the top floor of the castle tower, Dumbledore stood at the window, quietly looking at the Quidditch field. With the help of eagle vision, he could clearly see the details of the battle between Snape and Tom. This aura, is it the might of the dragon? Dumbledore has a sharp eye and is almost the most knowledgeable wizard in the world. The reason why he didn't see through Tom's true colors yesterday was because Tom had completely digested the dragon bloodline in the past few days, and no one could tell unless he took action. But in this fight, the magic became much more powerful and Dumbledore immediately realized the truth. However, Dumbledore was not sure whether Tom had merged with the dragon's blood during this holiday, or whether his latent blood power had been stimulated. He was inclined to the latter, because the former was too difficult. And after the fusion, it shouldn't be as natural as Tom's, and there is a high probability that the appearance will change. Their family has the blood of the Phoenix and they know the performance of the first generation of fusionists best. The battle continued. This time, Tom had made up for the loss from the last battle and suppressed Snape. His violent attacks made it a luxury for Snape to fight back. Does Snape have a way to break the impasse? Yes, he has 9 ways to break the impasse. But it cannot be used at this time. How shameless of him is it to use evil black magic on a student? Even if he has no shame, would the old man watching the game allow him to do this? Therefore, when the rules were limited to a regular duel, Snape really had no good way to deal with Tom. Because he found that not only the power of Tom's spells increased significantly, but his physical fitness also changed. His movements became crisp and his reaction speed was fast, as slippery as a loach. On the contrary, he has been sitting in the office for a long time, so his athletic ability has declined. It is basically equivalent to the output of standing still. In the headmaster's office, even though Dumbledore had just discovered that Tom had dragon blood, his expression remained calm, but at this moment his brows were deeply furrowed. He was relentless, as powerful as thunder, pressing forward step by step, and every time he cast a spell, he was extremely confident and determined. Advertisement: this fighting style, how did he see the shadow of Grindelwald? It's really weird. Another 5 minutes later, Snape, who was already sweating, called a halt to the fight. Tom originally wanted to pretend he didn't hear anything and get his revenge, but after thinking about it, he decided to give Snape some face so that he could feel justified when asking him questions in the future. So he stopped with a sense of regret. Snape left angrily. He was not angry with Tom, but with himself. The professor couldn't even convince a single student. His dignity was completely shattered. Tom would definitely not take him seriously in the future. Although it was like that before. No, he has been too lazy these years. Even if he cannot reach Voldemort's level, he cannot give up on himself. At least he has to let Riddle surpass him later. Tom didn't know that because of his stimulation, Snape actually started to work hard, otherwise he would definitely ask him for tuition. After Snape left, he did not return to the castle immediately, but went to the Forbidden Forest. There are unicorns in the Forbidden Forest, but he doesn't know how many there are or where their living areas are. Although there is no good way to complete the second trial now, he still needs to scout the area and make preparations. Tom thought about rescuing the unicorn from Quirrell. He would definitely save it if he could. After rescuing it, the unicorn, such a highly intelligent creature, would definitely treat him with kindness. But the system requires recognition and following, which, to put it bluntly, means being his dog. Hagrid has a good relationship with the creatures in the Forbidden Forest, but this does not mean submission and following. The two are not in a superior-subordinate relationship, but equal friends. Therefore, building good relationships is the first step, and how to complete the transformation of relationships is the second and most important step. It was 2 o'clock and Tom still hadn't found the unicorn, but he did find some traces. After his gain, he returned to the dormitory to sleep. He slept soundly, but 2 of them tossed and turned and couldn't fall asleep. In the dormitory of the potions professor's office, Snape suddenly jumped up from his bed. No, how could Riddle become so strong? Principal's office. Dumbledore sighed and paced back and forth in front of the window. What is Grindelwald's fighting style? No, he must have seen it wrong. Having solved the homework problem, Tom is finally free from all worries. In the following week, apart from attending classes, King's, he spent most of his time in the library. He found all the books and materials about unicorns and began to study them. Study the habits of unicorns. On the last day of the first week, Hermione told Tom a piece of news. Harry had figured out Nicholas Flamel's identity and guessed the origin of the 4 planes by using the chocolate frog card. The hidden thing is the Philosopher's Stone. Then, he and Ronald started to worry about the safety of the Philosopher's Stone for Dumbledore. Tom smiled and ignored Harry's reaction. It was good that he discovered it, so that he would be the first to know if there was any problem with the Philosopher's Stone. Who knows if Quirrell will figure out all the traps in advance and take action earlier than the original time. Anyway, in this week's magic class, Tom noticed that Quirrell's face was getting paler and paler. He didn't know if it was because Voldemort was getting more and more oppressive, or if he was just under a lot of pressure. It feels like I could collapse at any moment. Sighing, Tom closed the book and put it back to its original place. Most of these materials introduce the various economic values of unicorns and breeding strategies, but there is no mention of how to gain the recognition of unicorns. In fact, this is normal. Most wizards need materials, and few people would think about taming unicorns. No matter how pure it is, it is a 4x level magical creature and is somewhat harmful. At night, while studying space training, Grindelwald saw that Tom was still worried about the unicorn and gave him an idea: go ask Dumbledore, he has a wide range of knowledge. Maybe I can give you some useful suggestions. Tom looked at him with a half-smile. How could he not know what Grindelwald was planning? He agreed with Grindelwald's method, but also put forward his own requirements. Let Grindelwald develop a milk suitable for Tom's body. Magic. Advertisement. Chapter 92. Logically speaking, it is called self-created magic, so it must be done by oneself to be called self-created. But in fact, many of the magic created by the magic world are actually slight adjustments or variant applications based on certain magic. For example, the gas stove that Grindelwald placed in Paris was called the Devil's Flame, but in fact it was a combination of the magic of the Grim Reaper and Legilimency. Tom could have asked Grindelwald and Andrus to help him design spells based on his style. After he learned it, he improved it according to his actual usage experience and his own understanding. When others learn ordinary spells, even if they master them, they can only score 50 points. After years of training, they may be able to get 80 points. Tom started out with a score of 80 or even 90, and then through his own transformation, he achieved a perfect score of 100, saving himself a lot of trouble. To achieve his level, one must have a century-level beast of burden. No, it must be the teacher who takes the trouble to help him customize the spell. Grindelwald and Andrus were also amazed after hearing Tom's ideas. Hajim, you are really not lazy when it comes to being lazy. Tom could think of such an operation, which saved him a lot of trouble. But he and Andrus would be very busy. There is no problem with Andrus. He either sleeps or reads every day anyway. With Grindelwald around, they can chat and do some serious work. Grindelwald hesitated for a moment and also agreed. The condition was that every time Tom went to see Dumbledore, he had to open the study space so that he could know what the two of them talked about. Tom didn't refuse. 1 hour and 6 credits, I can give Grindelwald 10 minutes to see his old lover, and it's not a waste to use the rest of the time to study. Now Tom rarely opens the study space to let the two of them out, he goes in alone. Just treat it as a time to relax and as salary for the two personal trainers. The terms were agreed upon, and Tom prepared to go find Dumbledore the next day. However, he did not go in the morning. Instead, he asked the house elf to pass a message to confirm that Dumbledore was free in the afternoon. The two agreed to go out for a walk at 4 o'clock. Although the weather was still cold, there would be Quidditch matches starting next month and Gryffindor had already started training. The two were some distance away from the field, and Tom could hear Wood's roar at the twins. This man's passion for Quidditch is beyond comprehension. Tom felt that if Wood was placed in the school more than 100 years ago, when Phineas was the principal, the first case of a student assassinating a principal in the school's history would probably have occurred. It's that old man Phineas who suspended all Quidditch matches. There are quite a few people walking on the lawn. Today is a rare sunny day, and the school is filled with a leisurely atmosphere. The hound Fang at Hagrid's door was growling. He was tied to the door. Several students were standing at a distance that was out of reach, teasing him with dried meat. Tom could guarantee without looking at the school uniform that only Gryffindor would be so mean. They are so bad. Daphne also saw it and looked at the grinning Yaya with indignation. Tom thought Yaya was ugly, but Daphne thought that although she was ugly in a cute way. She immediately took out 2 pieces of beef jerky from her snack bag and put them in Yaya's bowl. With food, Yaya naturally ignored those students. After losing their toys, they looked at Tom and Daphne unkindly and left in a depressed mood. Tom was so angry that he laughed and stretched out his hand. The legs were frozen and stopped. The legs of several people were instantly tied up as if by invisible ropes, tightly together, and their bodies lost their balance. They all fell to the ground when they lost their balance. Riddle, what are you doing? One of the little wizards said angrily, remove the spell for us. As a well-known top student in the school, many people in other grades know Tom. Tom looked down at them with disdain, you are not a good person and are worse than dogs, but you dare to stare at us. Get out of here now. Who can help you break the spell? Advertisement being insulted by a junior student, several of them were so angry that their faces turned red, and they wanted to fight with Tom, but now their legs and feet were locked, so they could only swallow their anger and remember this grudge. Seeing several Gryffindors jumping and skipping towards the castle with difficulty, Daphne burst out laughing. Gryffindor lives in the tower, so they're going to suffer. It's their fault. They were the first to cause trouble. Tom felt that the Gryffindor kids were the most troublesome in the entire school. Hufflepuff's little wizard is the most honest, that goes without saying. Ravenclaw has an unbalanced gender ratio, with girls accounting for more than 2/3, and even though there are more females than males, they can't cause any trouble. Apart from targeting Gryffindor, Slytherin is fanatically obsessed with honor, and doesn't really cause any trouble at other times. Of course, it is usually their dean who causes trouble. Only the Gryffindors were a bunch of hyperactive people with high energy who would get into trouble from time to time because of their curiosity. Tom, they won't go back to complain to Professor McGonagall, will they? After laughing, Daphne started to worry again, but Tom shook his head. Don't worry, the students who love to complain the most are in Slytherin, and Gryffindor is a group of people who will swallow their anger even if it means losing their temper. It was embarrassing enough for the seniors to be taught a lesson by the juniors, and they still had to go find the professor. Even if they did go, Professor McGonagall asked them why they had a conflict with Tom. Was it because of a dog? Then the next day, Gryffindor would become the biggest joke in the castle. After listening to Tom's analysis, Daphne also felt that it made sense. Even Hermione was a person who cared too much about her reputation, let alone other people. After rubbing Yaya's dog head for a while, Tom took Daphne into the grove while Hagrid was tending the vegetable garden. He gave her a bottle of tonic potion and instructed her how to absorb and digest the potency of the medicine. When the drug was basically absorbed, the remaining effect would take time to resolve. Daphne had clearly felt the changes in herself, and looked at the boy with surprise and admiration. Tom, you are amazing. You can make such a powerful potion. Not to mention 2 lives, even if an old man in his 70s or 80s is looked at with admiration and respect by a beautiful girl, he will feel comfortable in his heart. Tom rubbed her little head and said, your body is also very weak. Don't always think about your sister. You should also strengthen your exercise. Astoria, yet. Daphne was touched by Tom's concern, and her sister control attribute came into play again, with her eyes shining. Can this potion Astoria work? I feel warm all over now, and I feel great. Tom thought about it and decided that the strengthening potion could not cure any disease, but it could enhance the physical fitness. Even if it was useless, it would not cause any harm. He nodded. Daphne was now even more excited, and begged Tom to give her another potion, which she wanted to send home for Astoria to try. I don't have much here, just these few bottles. Tom took out 2 more bottles. Send these back, and also explain the movements I taught you just now. They must be used together. If it works, then ask Madame Greengrass to help me collect the eyeballs of the Sphinx. That is a necessary material, but I don't have it. The 2 went straight to the owl shed and wrote the letter on the spot. Daphne had an owl named Winnie, who was Snow White and very good looking among owls. As for the question of money, neither of them mentioned it. Tom didn't want it, but the little witch wrote it directly in the letter and asked Mrs. Greengrass to send another 5,000 galleons. Even if it has no effect on Astoria, she knows best how it feels after using it. In Daphne's mind, this potion is definitely worth 5,000 galleons. Watching the owl fly away, Daphne prayed silently, hoping that this was not a false alarm. At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, Tom, Hermione, and Daphne came out of the room of requirement and said goodbye to each other, and arrived at the door of the principal's office. When the gargoyle saw him, he was about to open the door, but was stopped by Tom. No, didn't we agree that everyone who comes here must say the password? How can I be treated specially? Advertisement, the stone beast said with a gloomy face. Boy, can you stop holding a grudge? It was just a teasing of you that time, and it's been a whole semester. That won't do. Tom said seriously, whoever enters must say the password. You told me that. But don't you know the password? Why do you have to tell me the names of the dishes every time? The stone beast was about to collapse. Others would just say the password directly when they knew it, but Tom had to read out the answers one by one from the candy store menu, and would even skip the last 10 correct answers. Now the gargoyle feels a pain in his stone head whenever he hears the names of various candies. He simply ignored Tom and moved aside, turning into a stone. Tom curled his lips, thinking that the stone was really funny, and walked in. Dumbledore had been waiting for a long time, sitting behind his desk with a smile. When he saw Tom stretch out his hand and motion for him to sit down, he said with a smile, "Can I, as the headmaster, finally be of some use? Mr. Riddle, the house elf sent a message saying that you need my help. I would be honored to help you." Please feel free to ask for anything you want." Dumbledore was really happy. He felt that all friendships were built on mutual help. He was not afraid that Tom would trouble him, he was just afraid that Tom would be a loner like the previous Tom, and eventually become a completely cold-blooded Dark Lord. "Professor, this is what happened." Tom smiled shyly. "I've read an interview with you in 1955. At that time, you said that Newt Scamander was your favorite student. I admire Mr. Scamander very much. At the same time, I also encountered problems related to magical animals. I would like to ask this master for advice. Do you have his contact information?" Dumbledore's smile froze on his face. He had thought about it for a long time, and even decided to give Tom the approval for the restricted area, but he didn't expect that he would be asked to be a middleman to help him with superstition. Grindelwald, who was still observing his old friend in space, also broke down. "I asked you to come to Dumbledore for advice, not to ask you to go to Scamander through him. Fantastic beasts. Newt is indeed an expert in this area. I am ashamed to say that I am not as good as him." Dumbledore quickly adjusted his mentality and generously admitted his inferiority. "Newt is not only my student, but also my good friend. I'm sure he will be happy to help you." "Thank you very much, Professor." Tom took out the letter he had prepared long ago and handed it to Dumbledore. "Please help me send this letter to Devonshire." Dumbledore took the letter and suddenly laughed, with a somewhat teasing laugh. "Who said Newt lived in Devon?" Tom was startled. "Isn't it introduced in the book?" Dumbledore revealed the truth. In fact, Newt and his wife Tina live in New York for a long time. Devon is just a cover for the outside world. After all, he offended many people when he was young. As he spoke, the old man's expression also became sad. Even now, even though the story is over, there are still people who want to take revenge on Newt and help an old friend get revenge. Tom was silent. Needless to say, the old friend was the one who was now in the study space. "Grindelwald?" Tom asked distractedly, "Didn't you fail? Why are the saints still so powerful that even people like Scarsted have to hide from them?" "My failure doesn't mean they failed." Grindelwald narrowed his eyes in the study space. "Who were the people who followed me back then? Most of them were purebloods, and there were also quite a few half-blood wizards who were interested in the magic world. They are the backbone of the magic world. If all the saints are really liquidated, wizards across Europe will be extinct or even face the risk of extinction." Tom was silent. After thinking about it, it made sense. Those who agreed with Grindelwald's ideas must be those who believed that wizards were superior to muggles. They were also the backbone of the entire wizarding world. So they weren't punished. Grindelwald fell into a state of recollection, and after a few seconds he whispered, "Of course there will be punishment. Although I haven't investigated, many people will definitely not have an easy life, at least for a few years. Within a generation, there is no access to rights." Advertisement.
If you're enjoying the story so far and want to hear the next parts, don't forget to like the video. It really helps the channel grow. And if you'd like me to continue the series, drop a comment below letting me know. Your feedback and support keep these audiobooks going strong. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.